6 a.m. in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show on 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Ford, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, center. Most of the time, pretty crazy. It's a beautiful day in the greatest country in history, and it's July 1st, July 1st, a month that we get to celebrate all the liberty and independence. It is a great, great morning to be with you all. We're gearing up for a whole nother morning of engaging discussions, critical analysis, and most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab your coffee, Denver, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Billy, it was a wild night at the Hunt family ranch last night.
What'd you do? What was up?
So it's about 10:30 at night. I'm lying down to go to bed, and we got our windows open, and all the animals been put away, tucked away for the evening.
Nice,
It's part of the family chores. You have to get up in the morning, let them all out, and get them all fed, and then put them away at night, feed them, and tuck them all away. And our dogs, which are guardian livestock dogs, are going crazy.
Really?
All of them bark and bark
so
and bark and bark. Something's going on. We added 3 new little baby goats to the Hunt family ranch last night.
Oh, my goodness. Did you know they were pregnant?
We did. Yep. We knew they were pregnant. We just didn't know when they were coming. And those dogs are amazing, dude.
Yeah.
Just
incredible.
They're not even in the same stall. They're not even anywhere near. But they could tell one of the mama goats was going through labor.
Oh, that is so cool.
And they were letting everybody know. So we raced down there and
that is
got
awesome.
Them on. Three healthy baby little Nigerian dwarf goats.
Wow. Oh, that's incredible. That is really cool.
I didn't sleep last night.
No, you didn't?
Well, we got a little bit, but it's hard to go to sleep after that.
Yeah.
Craziness.
Yeah, I was watching craziness of the Euro soccer over the weekend. It was nuts over the weekend. It was crazy. Yesterday was amazing. Saturday was great.
Billy, how have you not done like color commentary on soccer games?
I have. I did it for the Rapids for a while.
Nice.
Yeah. And in fact, did a July 4th game out there at Mile High, which is kind of cool, and did pre and post game for the Rapids for a while. There were some really, really interesting games over the weekend. Italy's going home, which is crazy. Switzerland beats Italy. Italy's the defending champ, and so they go home on Saturday. And yesterday, England is losing to Slovakia. They're losing. And then they make an amazing goal in extra time. And then about 90 seconds, or in the injury time, and then 90 seconds into the extra time, they score and win 2-1. And so
England wins.
Yeah, England wins. So it was.
I don't know a lot about soccer, but I know enough playing video game soccer that if you wanted to win, you were England and you played Slovakia.
Yeah, it was really funny that England performed this badly. And the fun part about watching England right now is if you think that there is a bad NFL head coach, he's got nothing on the English head coach, Gareth Southgate. Gareth is afraid to lose. He's afraid of his shadow. And the funny part is the thing that he's really, really bad at is tactical changes and making substitutions. And they had to do that. And you're like, the hell are you? And it was mind-numbingly bad. But luckily, England had just enough physical talent to drag themselves across the line, even though there's no way they deserve to win. It was yesterday watching England-Slovakia is the reason that I always say inside of professional soccer, it's unlike any other sport on the planet because no other sport demands excellence of the better team. Every other sport, the better team can kind of, we'll do okay. No, this demands excellence. A less talented, better organized squad can beat a more talented team any day of the week. And that's why there's a great equalizer inside of soccer, unlike anything else. And that's exactly what happened. England was by far better, but Slovakia knew what they were doing. And they did it well. They ran it was basically 2 different squads. They ran a group of 4 in the back where they just parked the bus, is what it's called, where you just kind of, you block the middle 2 channels. And then they left 2 strikers up top. And anytime they got the ball back, it was a jailbreak. It was everybody run forward as fast as you can. We are just going to run at England as fast as we can, and we're going to get it to the 2 guys up top, and they're going to streak forward, and we're going to see if we can create chaos. And sometimes chaos, fun things happen. And it was great to watch because you'd see England's pushing and pushing and pushing, and then jailbreak, and England's like, running back, trying to defend, and everybody's all out of position. And it's so much fun to watch when you see the tactics. It was fantastic to watch. It was great tactically. So yeah, and then we got France, Belgium today. So that's going to be really, really interesting. That's going to be something different. Yeah. So Belgium.
What should we look for in this game?
Oh, it should be France winning this one, but Belgium has a shot. This is the end of Belgium's golden generation. Probably the best group of talent they've had come through, and they've won nothing. And so this is kind of a really, really difficult time for them. They're constantly underperforming, but they have just enough talent. And France has been off. France should be one of the favorites, but it's just as if it's like one of their spark plugs is misfiring in the engine. They're just not hitting what they should be. Now they've got a chance today to come in and really show what they can do. But so far, they haven't been doing anything. And I can't figure out, there are a couple of guys that the head coach for France is really, really smart, but he's leaving a couple of kids on the bench that I cannot figure out why. There's one guy that plays for Real Madrid, outside left winger. I cannot figure out why he hasn't found the field yet. But we'll see. We'll see what happens today. It'll be fun.
It's a wild news day as well. The Biden family meeting over the weekend, trying to figure out what they're going to do next. Should Joe stay or should he go? We'll get into the details on that. Ted Trimpa, a Democrat strategist and political consultant. You know the name well. He's really the mind behind the whole state of Colorado becoming blue. So we disagree on policies, but he is a brilliant strategist. If there's any example of that, it's the fact that the state of Colorado is blue.
Yes.
He's going to join us in the 7 o'clock hour, and I'm going to ask him, if he was advising Joe Biden, what would you say to him? What would you do at this point? You've been in Democrat circles, Democrat strategy for decades now. What would he tell Joe Biden to do? Dr. Tom Copeland, director of research, out with a new op-ed. Why Palestinians are not welcomed by their neighbors? This is a question I have raised over and over and over again. You have Jordan, you have Egypt, you have Iran, you have Saudi Arabia, you have all these Muslim countries there, and they don't want the Palestinians. Is there something that's telling us? He's got a great op-ed in Real Clear World over the weekend. And then Tractor Supply slamming on the brakes on its DEI initiative and going the other direction after losing nearly $2 billion in market value. What did Tractor Supply do? How did they change over the weekend? And they are no longer embracing DEI. So lots of news to cover. And in addition to all this, U.S. Supreme Court cases coming out today. We may find out about Donald Trump and immunity. It's going to be a wild news day. You're not going to want to miss it. By the way, this Thursday, July 4th, this is always a great week during the summer. Everyone's in good spirits. We love our country. It's warm outside. People going camping. It's going to be a great show today. Speaking of a great show, let's check in on Blake Olson with the news. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, listen, good morning, Jeff and Billy. I can relate to you, Jeff, on the dog thing. I about dropped my jaw when you said that. I didn't get any sleep last night because the next door neighbor, I don't think they knew about your goats. But this is what went on for 5 hours next door to me last night. Oh my!
Is that an actual recording, huh?
That happened last night, and I'm like, man, I'm not going to get any sleep. I might as well record it so Jeff and Billy can hear it. I mean, I don't know the next door neighbors very well. I don't know what was going on, but this sounded like the call to prayer or something. I mean, it just went on and on. And I'm like, oh, okay. So the Hunt family is having goats. So that dog knew about it.
They're all communicating with each other.
Yeah, exactly. Now I know. I feel much better. Yep.
Oh,
good morning.
My goodness,
yeah,
bro.
It was crazy, man. And I don't know, maybe he's happy about the Euro Cup or whatever Billy's watching. I don't know.
Go.
All right, here's the news. 60, man, it is a beautiful morning, though. It was beautiful at 2. It was beautiful at 3. It was beautiful at 1 o'clock last night. Beautiful this morning at 4, 5 o'clock. 68 and cloudy in Denver, expecting highs in the upper 80s today. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story.
Joe, you did such a great job. You answered every question. You knew all the facts. And let me ask the crowd, what did Trump do?
Lie. Just in case you didn't hear President Jill Biden, the other president, on Friday. Great job, Joe. You answered all the questions. President Biden spent Sunday at Camp David discussing the future of his reelection campaign with family members. He's going to have to agree to step down if all this happens. He has to agree to it. My over-under now is 14 days. It's down to 14 days. Delaware Senator Chris Coons thinks Biden is at the top of his game.
He was comfortable. He was proud that he gave a strong speech at a campaign event in North Carolina. He gave a strong speech in New York. He's had a great few days, and it's building on a great few years. No one has been a stronger and more consequential president in my lifetime than Joe Biden. It is always a bad bet against Joe Biden.
Yeah. Chris Coons.
No
man.
one has been a stronger and more consequential president in my lifetime.
He's not from Delaware, is he? Wow.
Oh.
And then in case you missed this, Jeff, on Friday with Biden.
I know, like millions of Americans know, when you get knocked down, you get back up.
Oh, man, they're back. They're ready to go. Nothing's going to get them. If he steps down, you're going to love this one. Next in line, of course, is Vice President Kamala Harris. Listen to this garbage. Just like Hillary, remember when she said, when she turned her dialect to, I don't get no ways tired. She's all street now, keeping it real, changes her dialect for BET.
Hey, girl, I'm out here in these streets. And let me tell you, you're right, Taraji. There is so much at stake in this moment. The majority of us believe in freedom and equality. But these extremists, as they say, they're not like us. No, they're not. There's a full-on attack on our fundamental freedoms. The freedom to vote. Yep. The freedom to love who you love, the freedom to be safe from gun violence, the freedom for a woman to make decisions about her own body, not having her government tell her.
We be out in these streets.
They don't have the freedom to vote. She doesn't have the freedom to vote or love who she wants to love. Wow. Hey, thankfully it's July 1st, by the way. So June, I love June, but it's July now. And we're getting ready for Independence Day. As Jeff mentioned, expecting the decision from the Supreme Court today on presidential immunity. Travelers hit the road for Independence, for the Independence holiday this week. A gallon at the pump is running about $3.49, according to AAA. In Colorado, the cheapest gas is $2.34 at a loaf and jug in Parker if you're looking for cheap gas. Westminster police investigating a deadly stabbing that happened at a local Super 8 motel early Saturday morning. Police found a man suffering from a stab wound to the chest when they arrived at the motel and pronounced dead at the scene. Police say the suspect knew the victim. The suspect is described as a Hispanic man who's 6'2", with brown hair and brown eyes. Denver police investigating a series of stabbings that injured 3 people over the weekend. They happened late Saturday night into Sunday morning. 2 occurred near Colfax. 1 person was arrested in connection with the 3rd stabbing, while police are still developing suspect information in the other 2 cases. No word on the victim's current condition. First responders rescued a person who was stuck in a storm drain in Thornton on Saturday. Crews arrived at the scene near 88th and I-25 shortly after 5 o'clock, and the person who was stuck was freed about an hour later, and they were able to take him to a hospital and check him out, but no serious injuries, thankfully, were reported. News brought to you by Lair Fireplace and Patio, Denver's premier source for everything fireplace, patio, and grills. Locally owned and operated since 1954. Online at lairfireplacepatio.com.
Nicky Lopez, little grounder to second. B-Rod over to first. Yes. And the Rockies indeed outlast the White Sox.
I think that was Mark Stout. Rockies outlast the White Sox in 14 innings. 14 innings. 5 for the final. 64 in Castle Rock. And let's see, 65 in North Glen, 68 in Denver. Jeff and Bill just getting started. It's Monday morning. Wake up. Get up. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
The 710 5-day forecast, partly cloudy to cloudy, warm, near 90. A few isolated showers and thunderstorms around today, near 60 tonight. Mid-80s Tuesday, a couple of late-day thunderstorms, near 90 late-day thunder on Wednesday. Not as warm Thursday for the 4th of July and Friday, with highs only 70s and low 80s, with a few isolated showers and thunderstorms. Weather sponsored by Branch Planning. Some income annuities are paying 25 to 45% more than last year. Get a free retirement review by calling Branch Planning today at 720-651-9800. Find out more at branchplanning.com. I'm meteorologist Don Day in the 710
At this hour
KNUS
in the
Weather
UK,
Center.
I'm John Beaver, and here are the top stories we're following. Last night's CNN presidential debate gave voters a rare side-by-side look at the two oldest candidates ever to seek the US presidency. In New York, Haley Bianco has a recap of the showdown.
President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump traded attacks on abortion, immigration, and their handling of the economy in their debate on Thursday night. Biden sounded raspy and stumbled over his words on several occasions during the debate. Two White House officials said Biden had a cold.
Total ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence.
At the halfway mark, Biden referred to Trump's conviction for covering up hush money payments to porn star Stormy Daniels, calling him a felon.
The only person on this stage is a convicted felon is the man I'm looking at right now.
In response, Trump brought up the recent conviction of Biden's son, Hunter, for lying about his drug use to buy a gun. The next debate in this year's campaign is scheduled for September. Reporting in New York, I'm Haley Bianco, Salem News Channel.
And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm John Beaver in the UK on Salem News Channel.
Loud talk. Or the neighbors can hear it,
Call
though.
to prayer.
Yeah, that was good.
That was good. You know who also had a rough weekend? Joe Biden got his family together on Sunday out at Camp David to try to figure out what's going on. This from the New York Times. Biden's family tells him to keep fighting as they huddle at Camp David. President Biden's family is urging him to stay in the race and keep fighting despite last week's disastrous debate performance, even as some members of his clan privately expressed exasperation at how he was prepared for the event by his staff. People close to the situation said on Sunday. Mr. Biden huddled with his wife, children, grandchildren at Camp David while he tried to figure out how to tamp down Democratic anxiety. Well, his relatives were actually aware of how poor he did against President Donald Trump. They argued that he could still show the country that he remains capable of serving for another 4 years. Mr. Biden has been soliciting ideas from advisors on how to proceed, and his staff has been discussing whether he should hold a news conference or sit for interviews to defend himself and change the narrative, but nothing has yet been decided. The campaign scheduled what could be a critical call with its National Finance Committee on Monday to calm nerves and take temperatures. Listen to this. One of the strongest voices imploring Mr. Biden to resist pressure and to drop out was his son, Hunter Biden, whom the president has long leaned on for advice. I'm not going to spend any time diving into Hunter Biden's personal life, but come on, Joe. I was more interested in how Colorado Democrats were responding over the weekend, because if you remember, the debate was Thursday night. Then you go into Friday, you get one news day, and then you get the weekend. But for the most part, they hid. Kyle Clark even mentioning he had reached out to every single elected Democrat, either congressionally or statewide, and nobody wanted to talk about the debate. Surprisingly, even with Kyle Clark, they didn't want to go on and talk about it. But they did post some social media, and it was generally all the same talking points. Here's the chairman of the Colorado Democrat Party.
So I'm filling up gas here in Silverthorne, my spiffy new Jason Crow shirt. Thought I would chime in with some thoughts on last night's debate, and hooey, it was a tough one. It is not that unusual for a candidate running for their second term to have a very tough first debate. It's true of Barack Obama, successful two-term president. It's true of Joe Biden. And so Donald Trump does not care about you, doesn't care about me. He cares about himself. When he was telling the truth, which was barely just a few seconds of the entire debate, he promised a few things. He was going to rip away your abortion rights even more. He was going to give more handouts to the wealthy corporations and billionaires that have been taking advantage of working people for far too long. He promised to put more MAGA Supreme Court justices on the bench. We're going to side with polluters instead of our environment. And so, folks, the rest of the entire time, he was lying. He was lying through his teeth because he only cares about himself. Meanwhile, Joe Biden is one of the most successfully legislative presidents we've had since Lyndon B. Johnson. And so Joe Biden's a good man. He's a good president. He's done a great job. And he's delivered for Colorado. So we're going to deliver for Joe. I'm going to go knock on some doors. I'm going to make some phone calls. I'm going to send some text messages. I'm going to update my social media to talk about why I support President Biden, why I support Kamala Harris. And we're going to win this election together. He has stood up for us his entire career. Joe Biden has fought for Colorado. It's time for us to fight for him.
I get where the position they're put in.
Yeah.
Right. The debate was a disaster on Thursday. And I disagree with the notion that it was a bad night. I was in the room when Barack Obama and Mitt Romney debated the first time. That was a bad night. But nobody was calling for Barack Obama to withdraw.
Yeah, that is true.
It was great job, Mitt. All right. You came out aggressive and look, Mitt's best moments were when he was, more of a kind of conservative fighter. And even after that, he kind of stepped back, and Barack Obama, they had like 6 debates that year or something. It got to the point where they're having so many debates, no one would come to our debate parties anymore because it was like, I've seen this show already. Yeah. So it wasn't just a bad night. There are real questions with regards to Joe Biden's mental capacity, his physical fitness to be able to last another 4 years. And I get what you got to do. You got to be a good soldier. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to salute and I'm going to do my best. And I'm going to say, we're going to stand with Joe. He's a good man. He's delivered for Colorado. But come on. There's no way this guy continues.
I don't know. Why not? Because, what is the other option at this point? And
Michelle.
No, not at all, because she don't want to get in there. I understand that is the boogeyman that I have heard for now going on 6 years from Republicans. Literally.
I don't say boogeyman. She's just got the popularity.
No, but
I think if she got in there, people would go, Republicans would go, oh, crud.
Well, then why don't you just suggest Taylor Swift, going back to the origins of the show? Because she'd kill it.
She would.
Yeah, and that's the issue.
She'd probably be elected president.
And the thing is that I keep seeing this in conservative circles, that they're bringing somebody forward that has never shown any desire or want for the position, nor any desire or want for the spotlight in that system. But I understand it makes sense because everybody believes on the conservative side of the aisle that Barack Obama is doing all of the work and getting none of the money and none of the credit, which is really strange for someone that has an ego that would run for president. If you're someone like a Henry Kissinger or even someone on the level of a Dick Cheney, that makes a little bit more sense because you're someone that has worked behind the scenes. The problem is, I think the Democrats are stuck. I don't think there is an easy way to make that transition and one in which the voters would embrace. It would be very difficult to make that type of a transition because the voters, don't think they've got a voice. And the other part is this assumption that the other choice is spectacular, and it's not. The choice of Trump is not spectacular, nor is it necessarily that persuasive. If you weren't happy with Trump before, even though you saw with what you saw with Joe Biden in the debates, I don't think that makes you a Trump voter. I don't think it's persuading anybody on that side.
No, look, Bill, I don't disagree with you on that because he's got, first of all, he's got nearly 100% name ID. So everybody's got an opinion on Donald Trump, including those that are very strongly opposed to him. Here's Jason Crow.
Well, I can't speak for my colleagues, Phil. And clearly it was a tough night for the president last night. Even he admitted as much at a rally in North Carolina today. But here's the deal. You know, I've led troops in combat for this country for 3 times in Iraq and Afghanistan. I've been in Congress for over 5 years now. During that time, I've dealt with an insurrection, a pandemic, 2 impeachments, global conflict, and on and on. I've learned a couple of things. The first thing I learned is that we don't make decisions in the heat of the moment because those are usually bad decisions. And the second thing is we listen to people's concerns. And last night there were concerns about the debate. And what those concerns actually tell me is the deep fear that people have for a second Trump presidency, because they know he's a liar, they know he's a sociopath, they know he's a narcissist, and they know the damage he'll do to our country. And we have to listen to those concerns.
So Jason Crow being essentially making the argument that, yeah, Joe Biden may not technically be there. He's out to lunch, but he's not as bad as that guy.
Yeah.
And I'm a little stunned that that's where we are as America these days. If I was advising Donald Trump, I would go, you know, I think you got to go a lot more positive at this point. Joe Biden is so far on his heels that if you could start acting more positive, more presidential, more not into the personal attacks and into the weeds and all that stuff, I think you might actually do a really good job.
Does he have that in him?
That's
because
a $1 million question.
Because he's about grievance. I mean, if you listen to his stump speeches since he's been running, for re-election here.
Retribution.
Yeah, it's all about retribution. It's all about payback. It's all about getting back at those people. And there is something that he still repeats, and he repeated it again in the debate with Biden, that I look at and just think, ooh, that to me, and we've talked about it before, prevents him from gaining a large number of those unaffiliated voters that could be persuaded that I can't stand to go with an older Joe Biden for 4 more years because of what's happening. And then Donald Trump utters a particular phrase and they will reject him. And I think this is the weird part is I think in certain areas across the country that Republicans think are a slam dunk, they're going to find some voter erosion there that they're going to be surprised. And these would be normally hardcore Republican voters. And it has to do with the rejection of the 2020 results. I think that is a huge Achilles heel, especially in hardcore Republican districts and especially rural voters. I think rural voters will reject that if they're soft on Donald Trump and they see him doing that because, and this is just the idea of the rural voter, people that are out there, and these are the farmers, where you're not drawing up contracts, you're not getting lawyers involved, you're shaking hands. And if someone says they're going to do something and then turns around and says, no, that's not true, and continues to lie to you about something that you know is true, that's a huge turnoff for those voters. Those voters look at that individual and say, I can't shake your hand and trust you to do business. That's going to be a problem. Now, whether or not the Democrats can take advantage of it, I don't know. I don't know, but that is a huge problem. And he did it again during the
huge problem or
huge.
Just so
Huge
I kind of see it like January 6th where people are like, all right, we're going to keep talking about this. Really? But yeah, we put 300 people in prison over the riots that took place on January 6th. You impeach the guy
January
over
6th,
January
though,
6th.
January 6th is different. That's different than 2020 election. And because we can talk about what happened on January and who went and what went on there and why everybody got upset. But the idea of the 2020 election is provable. And the people saying it was stolen have never been able to prove the case. And that's the problem. It's not the idea of January 6th. And that's where I think people miss their focus. They hear stolen election and they go to January 6th. That's not the issue. The issue is refusing what happened in November, refusing that actually existed. That's going to be a huge problem. Yeah.
a huge problem.
Yeah.
I don't know if I see it as a huge problem, especially in deep Republican districts.
Why? I mean,
You think that's a huge problem
Yeah.
in deep Republican districts?
Yes, I do.
Why is that?
Because you're asking the Republicans to participate in a lie. And I believe that there are a number of Republicans out there that will not do it. And I say especially in rural districts, especially in rural Colorado.
How are they participating in the lie? Because they're voting for Donald Trump again?
Because he says it was stolen from me. So now we're going to vote for the guy that says it was stolen from you. That seems to be a delineation point about whether or not you're telling the truth, whether or not you're factual, and whether or not you can be trusted. And the reason I say it's an issue, and I believe it will be in rural areas, is talk about friend of the show, Jerry Sonnenberg. Jerry Sonnenberg, when they work out things with different farmers and their neighbors, they don't go to court. They don't get lawyers involved. You turn around and say, okay, we're going to do this and we're going to rebuild this fence and we're going to shake our hand. If the guy that shook your hand and said, I'm going to do this, turns around and does something different and then lies to you about it, you don't trust him anymore. And that I think is an issue. Now, I don't know if the Democrats can capitalize on it, but I think that's an issue. And he comes out and goes, I'm not truthful.
I don't see it, just because I think most people look at politicians and go, well, anytime they lose, they do this. So if you're Nancy Pelosi in 2016, you're saying that the campaign was rigged, or what her line was hijacked. She did this earlier this year in a debate in Oxford, claiming that the 2016 campaign was hijacked. And this notion that, farmers and kind of shaking hands and all that's going to affect them. I think people just look at that and go, well, that's politicians. They don't like to lose. And it's sort of like when a team loses and blames the refs. It happens in pretty much every game, and people just kind of go, well, you lost. But sure, it was the ref who made the bad call, and then you move on. But this notion that that this is somehow going to take away Republican voters, I just don't see it. All right, we'll get to the phone lines. By the way, give us a call if you'd like to talk. 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971, or text us on the 710KNUS app. Corey Nelson saying, hey, Billy, why don't they put up Hillary?
That would be funny. Yeah, you want to see them lose really, really badly?
You want to see retribution? Put Hillary Clinton back in office.
Oh, and she's behind the scenes looking for it. She's behind the scenes moving for it right now because she wants that. She still thinks she deserves that seat. Absolutely. And the Democrats are just dumb enough to try it. And it would be a bloodbath. You want to see it get really bad? Yeah, that'd get really bad. That'd get really bad.
The rematch of the 2016. All right, we'll get to calls in just a second. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
At this hour in the UK, I'm John Beaver, and here are the top stories we're following. Last night's CNN presidential debate gave voters a rare side-by-side look at the two oldest candidates ever to seek the US presidency. In New York, Haley Bianco has a recap of the showdown.
President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump traded attacks on abortion, immigration, and their handling of the economy in their debate on Thursday night. Biden sounded raspy and stumbled over his words on several occasions during the debate. Two White House officials said Biden had a cold.
Total ban on the total initiative relative to what we can do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump? I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence.
At the halfway mark, Biden referred to Trump's conviction for covering up hush money payments to porn star Stormy Daniels, calling him a felon.
The only person on this stage is a convicted felon is the man I'm looking at right now.
In response, Trump brought up the recent conviction of Biden's son, Hunter, for lying about his drug use to buy a gun. The next debate in this year's campaign is scheduled for September. Reporting in New York, I'm Haley Bianco, Salem News Channel.
And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm John Beaver in the UK on Salem News Channel.
That's right. Take your radio listening experience to the visual side. Tune in to X, Rumble, YouTube. Go to 710knus.com. You can see our smiling faces on all those multimedia channels. And Bill is quite the looker as well. So you may want to take advantage of that. All right, let's go to the phone lines. Joe Arvada. Good morning, Joe. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Good morning, Jeff. I just couldn't stand it any longer listening to this troop. Jason Crow, excuse me, what a despicable ideologue. There's nothing that comes out of his mouth that any American should listen to. You've destroyed our country. Everything, every vote that you have taken, every word that you have spoken has been against our nation. How dare any person there at KNUS put Jason Crow on as some moral bastion? Like John Kerry, you're just a feckless coward. I don't care whether you served in the military, and any of these people think that they can stop the movement that is Donald Trump are wrong. You will go down in flames, just like every one of you on this station that said Donald Trump had no chance. Oh, Donald Trump's not going to run. Donald Trump's not going to win the Republican nomination. Donald Trump's not going to win the presidency again. You were wrong. And
Joe,
it's about time you fessed up.
Joe, I got to ask you a question. So strategy-wise, you're advising Donald Trump. Joe Biden is completely on his heels. In fact, he's not even on his heels. He's on his back. There's no way this guy gets up. Okay? You have defeated Joe Biden. Joe Biden defeated himself. The fact that they've been hiding this guy the last 6-8 months and how bad his mental abilities are. What do you tell Donald Trump to do now between this date and November in order to secure a victory and to appeal to as many people as possible and even run with a 50-state victory? What do you tell Donald Trump to do?
Donald Trump, triple your security team. The feckless FBI, the worthless CIA is nothing but a bunch of criminals trying to destroy you. And all Americans should be ready and prepared to defend Donald Trump to death. He is our president. He will be our president. They stole the election. You should not put your faith in any of these miserable morons in the media. I am so sorry that KNUS has kind of taken a lefty turn, but we need to stand up as Americans, put our faith in God, stand behind Donald Trump, and don't listen to a word these people say and drag Donald Trump across the finish line with every erg of our moral fiber.
Now, I can agree with you, Joe, that Jason Crow, not necessarily the best surrogate. When you had the Democrat Party chair here in Colorado talking about how great Joe Biden is, it's a spokesperson, just like anybody out there that is telling you, yes, 4 to 5 dentists choose this gum. Same thing. They have a dog in the fight. Question I have for you is, are you going to vote this fall?
Of course.
Why? You just said the election last time was stolen. Why would you vote?
Well, let me just say this. Sometimes in our country, it's too big to rig. It's too big for this mealy-mouth voice to do anything.
No. Why would you think that?
The Donald Trump train.
Wait, but why? You
cannot stop it. You were wrong about him from the beginning. Now you can't do anything to change it.
But Joe, they stopped it last time, according to you, with rigging the election.
Well, I will say this.
Why would it matter?
They caught us off guard. I will, and I do readily admit that the election steal, we didn't think it was in the character of these evil demons that are running the Democrat Party.
That's not true.
Go ahead and rig the election.
No, that's not true, Joe. That's
yes,
not true.
It is.
No, Joe. Hang on a second.
Don't sit here and lie to me. I'm done with your life,
Joe. Donald Trump was saying the election was going to be rigged before we voted in 2020. In fact, he said it was going to be rigged in 2015. He said the vote was rigged in 2015 before Hillary. He said the vote was rigged in 2020 before Biden. So if this voting rigging thing is so great and so prevalent, you shouldn't vote because there's no way you can possibly overwhelm the algorithm. You think that all the diabolical people involved in the cabal that were able to, without any evidence, steal the election in 2020, you think they're not prepared? You think they haven't been working for the past 4 years to work on all of the fake ballots, to work on all the fake names, to register all the fake voters, and to have all the computers ready to switch exactly when they need to? They've had 4 years. If you think they were so good and they did it in 2020, they're going to do it again, my friend. Sorry. If you agree it was done in 2020, shouldn't even vote. Stay home because they're going to do it.
We lost Joe there.
We're going to do it.
Joe,
and I didn't touch the button. That's what happened. I didn't touch the button. Sometimes I didn't touch the button.
I think, Joe, we love you.
Oh, he's great. And I appreciate it. And he's right about how bad Jason Crow sounds trying to defend Biden.
Oh, yeah.
Just as bad as the guy doing the whatever his name is. It's the Democrat Party chair here in Colorado. And again, he's like, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share it on social media. It's like, oh God, that is just such a blatant call to action. And it's so bad because he doesn't understand. He's like, this is what I'm going to do. No. Here, let me give you a little bit of advice. You need to make it active. If you're going to do this and connect with the voters, don't sit there and say, I'm going to do this. Be like me. Shut up. This is the idea. You sit there and say, this is what I need you to do today. If you're mad about this, if you want to prove this wrong, you do this. It's a call to action. There's no real call to action in what the guy at the Democrat State Party is doing. That's the problem. It doesn't understand the messaging.
I think average people like watching the politicos squirm.
Oh, absolutely.
On either side. When everybody knows something and everybody's like, come on.
Yeah.
And they still get trot out.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to stand with Joe because Joe stood with Colorado.
Yeah. Yes.
Come on.
Yeah.
So at first I was a little frustrated. I was like angry because one, they've been mocking conservatives for pointing out Joe Biden's decline, right? The idea that no, there's something really wrong there. We don't really know who the president of the United States is and who's running this country. And then when I saw them all go with the same talking points, we're going to stand with Joe because Joe stood with Colorado. I'm like, fine. You know what? Double down with this brain dead president you got because we'll win 50 freaking states this November because at least we're the party that can string a sentence together. Is that what it comes down to? You guys are so inept. You're so willing to stand with Joe Biden that it's going to come down to we're the party that can at least string a sentence together. And I saw a great tweet over the weekend. You got one of three choices. You have a brain dead candidate, you got a president with brain worms, or you got a convicted felon. Congratulations, America. That's where we are.
And it's our fault. That's the thing. We got ourselves here. Good job. Pat ourselves on the back. That's a nice job. Nice job.
We're up against a break here. Corey, Marcus, stick around. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Now, there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts, text message your favorite local hosts, call the show, get the latest headlines, and enter contests to win prizes. All in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Let's get right to the phone lines. We're talking Joe Biden and his family getting together over the weekend to figure out what to do next. Marcus, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Doing good. How's your Monday?
The best show in town in the morning, and you're independent. I could care less what Joe says, but you're fair.
Thanks.
So, yeah, I watched the debate like 5 times off of YouTube, so I could, sometimes you miss stuff, and it was pretty interesting.
What did you see the second or third time through that you missed the first time? What were the things with Biden and Trump that you were surprised you found?
His facial expressions, like he was lost.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
If you watch that and go check it out a few times, it's like he got lost out there. He'd be shaken or all of a sudden he zoned out. Yeah. And that was really fascinating.
Marcus, one of the hardest things to watch, though, is to compare him with previous debates. Have you seen some of those where he is sharp and he's direct, he's right on top of the stats, and you're like, this guy has totally changed.
Yeah, and remember when they were talking about Social Security, and he got lost and mumbled and everything, and that's when Trump said to him, I don't know what he's talking about. And I said the same thing. What is he talking? He went to Medicaid and something, and it was like, what is he talking about?
Marcus, great question. I've got to get to one more call here. Appreciate it. Thanks so much for calling in, Marcus.
Yeah,
let's go to Corey. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show. Good morning, Corey.
Morning.
Hey, good morning, guys. Great job. Hey, I think I had a discussion with a really good friend of mine who's a Democrat the other day. We talked about this. I think statistically, this is the way I break it down. Number one, I don't think Joe's going to withdraw. I think he's such a state of denial that he can win. They're not going to withdraw to that guy, right? So that's probably number one. Number two, if he does withdraw, then you need to find somebody who can step in at a moment's notice, pivot, has instant name recognition, has the capacity to get big money, and can deal with all the policy issues. And I think there's only one person going to do that, and I think that's Hillary, right? What's your other choice? I mean, as far as who can have those same characteristics of being able to step in, pivot, instant name ID, and carry the water.
Corey, here's what I think Democrats are thinking. I think they believe that Donald Trump is such a threat to the democracy, has such high negatives. This guy's going to destroy this country, that if we just put anybody that's relatively well-known, that has some governing experience, that the people will automatically turn to them. And the reason I say this is I was in a campaign in 2006 where Bob Casey beat Rick Santorum by basically saying, I'm not Rick Santorum. And in some cases, you can win a campaign that way.
Well, but who? I mean, you're going to beat Kamala, then you prop up Kamala, right? You're going to throw her out? I think only Hillary and Kamala make sense. They could carry that ticket.
You don't think Gavin Newsom?
I think if they do that, he's the only other possibility we could think about who has that can carry California, carry the ultra liberals, and double down on their agenda, and can bring in the money. I think he's the only person that, besides Hillary, that could do that. Who else are you going to? Name somebody. We went through all the top Democrat leaders. Is anybody who can do that?
Corey, we're going to ask Ted Trimpa next. He's a Democrat political strategist. He's going to join the Jeff and Bill Show. I think Democrats are mistaken in believing that Donald Trump's negatives are so high. But my goodness, we're going to get some answers here next, I hope. And how would Ted Trimpa advise Joe Biden? You're Jeff
News 710 KNU.
7 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Monday, July 1st. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show on 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, center, and crazy. It's a beautiful day in the greatest country in history, and we're gearing up for a whole nother hour of engaging discussions, critical analysis, and most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab your coffee, Denver, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. We're tracking a whole lot of news, important and relevant to you. Steve Bannon set to begin a 4-month prison sentence for defying congressional subpoena. We'll be covering that. We got U.S. Supreme Court decisions coming out in the next hour or so. It could affect the future of this country. We'll be tracking that as well. And then coming up after the news, the infamous Ted Trimpa, Democratic strategist and political consultant, will tell us what would he do if he was advising Joe Biden. He's been in those rooms. He's had those tough conversations with candidates and elected officials. What would he say to the president? Would he say, stick it out? Damn the torpedoes. We're going forward. Or is it time for a switch? We'll ask him right after the news with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake. You get a little nap in?
Yeah, I did. I got a 3-minute nap. I feel great. Thanks, Jeff. 70 and cloudy in Denver, expecting highs in the upper 80s today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story.
That was strike month. If this were a ball game, he's got 2 more swings.
Do you think there's a better Democrat who can communicate the Democratic platform?
No.
That's Democrat Jim Clyburn from South Carolina. President Biden spent Sunday at Camp David discussing the future of his reelection campaign with family members. He'll have to agree to step down. Looks like Democrats are taking the soft sell approach. First Lady, she's taking the reins at this point.
What you saw last night on the debate stage was Joe Biden, a president with integrity and character.
And as long as you have guys like Senator Chris Coons from Delaware carrying the water, anything's possible. Biden has been amazing the past 3.5 years.
After the 3 crises he inherited from Donald Trump, a crisis of a pandemic that was mishandled, an economy that was heading straight down, and frankly, the assault on the Capitol on January 6th, which led to a crisis of democracy.
So it sounds like they're going to have to feed him a lot of ice cream to get him to quit. Jen Psaki and Benedict Arnold, Bill Kristol talk about how messy this could get at the DNC if he does step down.
And then you have a person who is untested, even if they're great and they have enormous potential, which we have a lot of 2028 Democrats who do, who's untested with low name ID and a party that's divided and upset. That's the potential outcome of an open convention.
The party would unite, Jen, behind whoever came out of that convention. Would the party be upset if it were Harris or Shapiro or Whitmer? No, of course not. And the debate would be healthy.
Millions of travelers are on the move ahead of the Independence Day holiday. The TSA says it expects to screen over 30 million passengers through Monday. AAA predicts that a record 60 million people will be traveling by car over the holiday. In Colorado, according to Gas Buddy, the cheapest gas, by the way, $2.34 at a loaf and jug in Parker, so Jeff can stop by there on his way home. Today, in the last day for Supreme Court decisions this term, top among them is the question of presidential immunity. Former President Trump's lawyers have argued Trump is immune from prosecution for his alleged crimes committed while in office. A number of U.S. military bases in Europe are on heightened alert over possible terror attacks. It's not clear what exactly caused the alert to be raised to the second highest level, but European authorities have tightened security ahead of the Paris Olympics and the ongoing European Football Championships. An RV was pulled out of the Big Thompson River after it tumbled down a rocky embankment on Saturday. It happened along West Highway 34 in the Big Thompson Canyon. And Loveland Fire and Rescue say that the RV fell about 75 feet. The driver was able to free himself from the vehicle and was evaluated by medics at the scene.
Nicky Lopez, little grounder to second. B-Rod over to first. Yes. And the Rockies indeed outlast the White Sox.
Yes, they do. In 14 innings, they win it 5-4 back at home tonight against the Milwaukee Brewers. 66 in Parker, 64 in Boulder, 70 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue Monday morning. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
The 710 5-day forecast, partly cloudy to cloudy, warm, near 90. A few isolated showers and thunderstorms around today, near 60 tonight. Mid-80s Tuesday, a couple of late-day thunderstorms, near 90 late-day thunder on Wednesday. Not as warm Thursday for the 4th of July and Friday, with highs only 70s and low 80s, with a few isolated showers and thunderstorms. Weather sponsored by Branch Planning. Some income annuities are paying 25 to 45% more than last year. Get a free retirement review by calling Branch Planning today at 720-651-9800. Find out more at branchplanning.com. I'm meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Over the weekend, the Joe Biden family got together at Camp David to huddle up. What are we going to do next? What would you advise the president to do? It was a disastrous showing during the debate last week, but was it just a hiccup? Was it a bad night? Barack Obama said that. Jason Crow said that. Chairman of the Colorado Democrat Party said that. We all have bad nights. The important thing is to unify, move forward, and fight for Joe Biden, because Joe Biden has delivered for Colorado. That was the message from Jason Crow, the chairman of the Colorado Democrat Party here in Colorado. So what would you say? Well, joining us is friend of the show, Ted Trimpa. Ted Trimpa is a Democrat strategist and political consultant, one of the most brilliant strategists I know. And I'm so honored he's taking time to join us. Ted, thanks for being on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yeah,
happy to, Jeff. Good to hear you. Good to hear your voice. Glad to have the show.
So let's say you met with Joe Biden yesterday at Camp David. What would your recommendation be to him?
Well, let's start with the simple fact that the performance was shocking. Anybody who says, oh, no, it wasn't that bad, they're not being honest with themselves, or they really have a screwed up idea as to, what coherence actually means. With that said, one, he should have never run for re-election. He said he was going to be, the transition into young leadership, and this was what, should be happening. And there's so many great, people coming up, particularly governors, and then decides to run for re-election. And it's very much very similar and of an approach to politics and their job that Ruth Bader Ginsburg had. She stayed too long. And I think this is a situation where he was. With that said, he chose for re-election. And we're at a point now where a lot of people within the party, understandably, are going to say, we just have to live it out. And I think that there's a question whether that's the right strategic decision, given that we're going to see that performance played over and over and over. And people are going to respond and say, well, yeah, he was great, the next 3 days. Yeah, because he was scripted. If I were advising him, I'm like, listen, we're pregnant. We're going to have the baby. And we just have to stick it out. Now, would I rather have seen someone else be the nominee? Absolutely. I mean, anyone who says that this is a great performance and this endears a lot of trust, they're just blind.
Do you think they could have done a primary, though? I mean, he's the incumbent president. Obviously, he could have not said, I'm not going to run. I was a transitional president. We had to stop Donald Trump. He's a threat to the democracy. And so I stepped in to do that. But then he obviously kept going. To your point, though, I think it would have been healthy for the party if he had said, I'm not going to run for a second term, to have a primary, because when you have a primary, you get to put the young stars up on the stage to see how they fare on the national stage.
I completely agree, because you can go through a list of governors that I would feel comfortable being president. And that's Gretchen Whitmer, that's Jared Polis, that's Phil Murphy, that's Andy Beshear, even J.B. Pritzker, even Gavin Newsom. And I realize, Gavin, lights a lot of people's hair on fire. But, you can say that any one of these governors, and there are others, I would feel okay being president. I would like to see them debate it out so we have an idea as to, how people respond to pressure. But we weren't given that opportunity. Now, back to your first question, well, a little bit of one of your questions. I don't think people should have challenged him in the primary. He made the decision, and he made the decision. This shouldn't be a situation like Ted Kennedy and Jimmy Carter. That created a fracture within the party that was not helpful when Carter went into his reelection campaign.
And remind people what that was, because that was even before my time.
Well, Carter was elected in 76. And, this is in part the country responding to Watergate. Well, then he was running for reelection in 1980. And a lot of folks thought that he was a weak president. I think that that's not fair to him, actually. There's some great books that's been written about it that go back and really detail what Jimmy Carter did as president. And Ted Kennedy felt like, listen, he's not a standard bearer and he shouldn't be reelected. So therefore, I'm going to utilize the primary process and I'm going to challenge him. And, I thought that's a lot of Kennedy hubris to do that. It's kind of an assumption, well, I'm a Kennedy. Of course I can do this. And, it hurt us. It hurt us. Now, the hostage crisis didn't help either. But we lost that election to Ronald Reagan.
Now, Ted Trimpa, Democrat strategist, joining Jeff and Bill. 2 questions. One, if the Democrats decide to replace Biden, who are the possible choices? And I specifically want you to, in that answer, address the rumor that it's Michelle Obama. What are your thoughts?
Michelle Obama, that's laughable. I mean, anyone who thinks that Michelle Obama is going to run for president, I have a bridge to sell. We can start saying that Trump is a Republican. These are things that just aren't going to happen. And so I think this is, conspiracy theorists, right-wing pundits really wanting to stir things up. I mean, even my husband mentioned it, and he couldn't keep a straight face when he said it. My husband's a right-winger, works for Fox News, the Gutfeld show. So I say no to this Michelle Obama. I just think people are dreaming. With that said, I think Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan, I think Jared Polis of Colorado, I think J.B. Pritzker of Illinois, I think Phil Murphy of New Jersey, I think Gavin Newsom from California would make great presidents. And I think we're at a point in time where we need a governor as president. The last thing we need is another United States senator as president. I can say that.
Now, what do you think are the weaknesses for the Democrats of trying to change horses right now? Are the Democrats, if they say, okay, Biden's too old, we can't possibly run this guy against the other old guy, which is kind of funny. But if they come to that conclusion, what are the pitfalls? What are the dangers of trying to switch out a candidate this late? Can it work?
Well, you have to start with, this is the simple fact. The only way, and I'll stress this, the only way, capital letters, ONLY, is if the president decides himself not to run. He has to release his delegates in order to do it. And if he doesn't, then he's running. So a lot of this is parlor talk. We sit around and what if about this? What if about that? If he decides that he's not, if he's deciding to continue, then he's continuing. And would it be an extraordinary convention? At least people would watch it, which would be something new because typically conventions now are just a bunch of pomp and circumstance. So I think we ought to be careful before we start walking down this path of what if, when at least right now it's pretty clear that he's decided he's going to run.
It seems like the New York Times, though, Ted, is putting a lot of pressure. The mainstream media, traditional liberal outlets are putting a lot of pressure on him. They came out with an op-ed over the weekend saying, for the sake of this country and as your last act of public service, please step away. Do you think that's going to have any impact on Joe Biden?
No.
Really? Why is that?
This is the same newspaper that didn't endorse him. I can't remember which race it was. This is the same newspaper that, over the years has gone after him here and there. And quite frankly, from my perspective, understandably. I mean, were there a lot of decisions that Joe Biden made or President Biden made that I would question? I mean, how we handled Afghanistan. I mean, that was, abhorrent. I mean, it shouldn't have happened that way. And I just think that there are foreign policy decisions that we've made over time that have been led by him that you could question. With that said, he is the president. He's deciding he's going to run again. And as a Democrat, I'm going to have to stand up. I'm going to have to support him, even though the reasoning behind that editorial, I totally get. I watched that debate and I was shocked. I mean, there's no other word that describes it for me than shocked. And plus the visual. I mean, standing there looking off with his mouth part open, or partly open. It was extraordinarily disappointing.
Ted, do you think, and by the way, Ted Trimpa, Democrat strategist and political consultant. Ted, do you think it's going to have a big impact on down ticket races? Let's say Yadira Caraveo in Congressional District 8, probably the most competitive race here in Colorado. CD3 is right up there. Do you think Joe Biden's performance at the top of the ticket is going to affect her?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, again, this is another one where I'm sure there are going to be other Democrats out there saying, oh, no, it's all going to be fine. It's rosy. I love when bread cooks in the oven and the smell that it puts throughout the house. And that's the feeling that we're going to have. I mean, that's crazy talk. This could suppress Democratic votes, or maybe Democrats are like, my God, why am I doing this? And that is a great concern for down ballot races. Now, given the two districts as you mentioned, in the 8th, could that matter? Yeah. It's going to be a question of how strong of a candidate Gabe is, and how strong of a candidate Yadira is going to be. In the 3rd, I don't think it's going to make any difference. With Hurd as the nominee, I mean, I love Adam. Frisch is a great guy. I just have a really difficult time seeing with Jeff Hurd as the Republican nominee of a Democrat winning in that race, no matter if Biden's at the top of the ticket or not.
Fascinating. So what would you tell Joe Biden to do if he's going to stick in it? All right, we're pregnant, like you mentioned. We're going to carry this all the way to term. How does Joe Biden recover in the next following few weeks in order to demonstrate he can lead for another 4 years?
For the love of God, don't do events at night.
That's good for me too. It's good advice for me.
Well, I mean, it's clear that as the day progresses, it seems, I haven't been around him all the time, so I don't have direct evidence of this that I have seen with my eyes. It would seem that as the day goes on, it gets a little bit more difficult in terms of clarity. The second thing I would say, just to be really blunt, and that is, to the extent we can script things. Be really careful when you're going off the cuff. If you're going to go off the cuff, make sure it's in the morning or in midday. And I'm just being blunt, and I'm sure I'll catch hell for that.
I think that's fine advice. Did Jared Polis text any major donors following the debate that you know of to try to position himself?
I'm not that aware of. I mean, Jared is a much better politician than that. Jared, and I know that some of your listeners are going to disagree with me. There may be some that say, I'm not necessarily a big fan, but, he's doing a pretty decent job given the legislature that he has. I would be stunned if the governor did that, because Jared is a much better politician than that.
I wouldn't blame him either, whether you're Whitman out of Michigan or Jared Polis out of Colorado going, or Gavin Newsom going, hey
Jared
guys, I'm here in the wings. If you want, I'm happy to jump in.
Oh, I mean, the governor's not going to encourage rats jumping off a ship. And after that performance, there were a lot of rats running around jumping off a ship. And I just don't see Governor Polis doing something like that. Do I think he'd make a great president? I do. But, you also have to understand when is the right time and how do you do that? And you don't do that by throwing somebody overboard at the first opportunity.
Ted Trimpa, Democrat strategist, joining Jeff and Bill live. I want to talk to you about some of the aftermath of the Biden-Trump debate that we saw. Given Biden's poor performance, putting on your strategy hat and looking at it, what do you think the numbers are? Is it a small number, medium number, a significant number of potential Biden voters that then turned and said, well, obviously, based on Biden's performance, I now must support Trump? And how many people that did not support Trump but could be considered conservative last time in the 2020 election saw the Biden performance and said, well, I didn't vote for Trump last time, but obviously he's now the choice? Are those numbers small, medium, large? What do you think?
So this is how I see it. Let's start, first of all, with the understanding, and this is a fact. We have the Electoral College system, which people that have listened to the show before know that I think we should get rid of the winner-take-all rule and do something different. But putting that aside, it's the battleground states. So, we're talking Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Nevada, Arizona, and what matters are voters in those states. So that's one. I'm starting to talk like Joe Biden now. Two, that was meant as a little bit of a joke.
I liked it.
So two, I think that the people who can think differently based on this debate performance are the people that are in the middle. And it's so frustrating because we always call them swing voters. I do think that this could affect swing voters. Do I think this affects the Democratic base? Will they'll say, I'll vote for somebody different? No. I think if anything, it solidifies some of that. The question is, does it depress, turnout? Which I think that there is a possibility that it would do that. Because I think the thing we have to remember in politics, it's very much like a jersey. You're on a team, and early on, you may be willing to kind of step out and something different, say something different. But when the proverbial hits the fan, people run back to their team. And I think that we'll see that with Biden. But the question then is the swing voters in which jersey that they pick. And I think that's really up in the air now.
Ted Trimpa, Democrat strategist and political consultant. Ted, help me understand why people aren't running to our Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He comes from a historic Democrat family. When I was sitting there watching the debate, I went, this was the party of John F. Kennedy. How did we get to where we are now with the gaping mouth open, the long stare, the inability to string a sentence together? How did we get there? Why not just turn towards Robert F. Kennedy and say, we're going to put a Kennedy back in the White House? Why are Democrats so opposed to him?
Okay, I have multiple reasons. The first reason, and this is a really simple one, the guy's crazy. He's a universal anti-vaxxer, and we can have a conversation about vaccines. But there are things that come out of this guy's mouth that's nuts. Two, there's a presumption that because he's a candidate, he should be able to do something and should be getting support. And three, as a Democrat, and this is one that really matters to me, where is the majority of his money coming from? The money that's supporting his race from the independent side is coming from Republican donors, because they know the better that Robert Kennedy does, the less better that the president does. And he's allowing himself knowingly to be a pawn. And you know what? When you knowingly allow yourself to be a pawn, I think that disqualifies you in order to be president.
Ted, can I pivot here and ask you what you thought of the primary here in Colorado last week, Tuesday night? It seems like extremists on both sides, rejected. Colorado going more with the moderate candidates. Is that a fair take? Were you happy with the results on the Democrat side? What were your thoughts of Dave Williams and the Republican side?
So let's put Dave Williams at the end of this answer. So I will get to that. I think overall, the primary results were great. Elizabeth Abs should not have been reelected. She should have never been elected in the first place. Tim Hernandez at the same, and he wasn't elected, by the way. He was appointed by a vacancy committee, which I want to talk a little bit about that. We should be doing a unified primary where people can vote for any candidate, regardless of party that they want. And then I think the top 4 should go in and we do ranked choice voting. We can talk about that. But overall, for the state of Colorado, I think the results that we got were great. The unfortunate thing about this is that in order to get these kinds of results, you have to have significant independent spending. You know, as a Democrat, and I see some of these far left folks that I know are not representative of Colorado, we do whack-a-mole. We're running around and going, oh, in that race, let's whack that one. Oh, let's run around. There's another race. Oh, let's whack that one. Oh, and by the way, it's going to be $1 million over there. It's going to be $1 million over there. This is a crazy way to do democracy. And there really needs to be a better way. Dave Williams, talk about despicable. To send out an email that says God hates flags, which is just a takeoff from Westboro Baptist Church in Kansas, where they said God hates flags. The last time I checked, I thought Christians love people. I'm a Christian. I got rebaptized in the Jordan River. I have a Bible in every single room of my house. I carry a Bible, believe it or not. I carry a Bible. I carry the Constitution. I carry the Declaration of Independence. And everything he did with that letter and fundraising appeals was despicable. And, you know, a thing I have to mention, Jeff, and I have a lot of respect for you and I like you a lot, you jumping on a bandwagon with him and not calling that out and using some of that language. I mean, the language that they used, they called people like me a godless groomer, despicable, a creep. You know, I expect that from a 13-year-old immature kid, not from adults, particularly one running from office. And bluntly, and I respect and I'm glad you do the program that you do when you get opposing viewpoints, but even having you even roughly associated with that, and I would say a little bit more directly, given some of the things that you sent out, it was really disappointing. I'm not hurt. I'm just disappointed.
Well, I think, and we had Dave on the show and we asked him about this, and Dave, and I agree with him in this case, that there is a movement within the LGBTQ community that especially as it relates to kids and the transing of kids and allowing kids to get life-altering surgeries that leave them sterile is totally inappropriate, and it should be called out. And I think, Ted, look, I think you're part of a movement that wanted to be able to live their lives, wanted the freedom to be able to live their lives, but there's a promotional element within the LGBT community as it relates to kids that's inappropriate. I'll give you the ability to respond to that.
Sure. Well, first of all, on the surgery, we're talking about a very minimal percentage. The second, I encourage anybody who doesn't understand trans to sit down and talk to parents of trans kids. And I'm not talking about granola throwing, lefty, you know, kind of a stereotype of a bolder parent, but, you know, parents out there actually that are Republicans. And I've done this work for over 20 years and I've seen them and I've talked to them and I've put them in front of state AGs. And, you know, these stories are compelling. Gender dysphoria does exist. So let's not throw out the baby with the bathwater. Now, do I think that the trans community made some, you know, critical political mistakes strategically? Absolutely. Sports is something that they should have never stepped down a path. We have weight classes for wrestling. We need to be thinking about how we can do that in sports. And what happened was we had numbers in the 70s of supporting the idea that trans exist and we should be treating them equally. You add in sports to that, your number drops like a rock into the 20s. That then changed the debate and gave people an opportunity to do political opportunism. And that's what's happened. And this thing is now spun out of control. I think it's been exaggerated beyond belief. I mean, to say that I'm a groomer, I'm a godless groomer, you know, what do you think? I'm like hanging out in elementary schools and picking out little kids saying, oh, gee whiz, I want you to be trans. Oh, gee whiz, I want you to be gay. I mean, that's preposterous.
Yeah, but Ted,
people know that.
I saw videos over the weekend from San Francisco Pride of men, grown men, completely nude, walking around. I mean, come on, man. What are we doing with that right now? Where we're allowing men to walk around completely nude and there were children present in San Francisco Pride. There's got to be an element of restraint here.
Oh, listen, and we shouldn't have nudist beaches. That shouldn't have existed. Have you ever been to a gay pride parade? This stuff has been going on for a long time, and everybody understands the context of a gay pride parade. You go gay pride parade, you're going to see some of that. You're not going to see a lot of that, but you're going to see some of that. You're going to see shirtless guys dancing on floats. You're going to see lesbians on a bunch of motorcycles. You're going to see gay guys with a lot of lesbians pushing, little, whatever they're called because obviously I don't know this because I don't have a child, pushing kids and, families that have values that are important, and they're giving a lot of kids homes. So I think that picking out these specific examples and then saying, oh my God, it's the end of the world. That's like, going to some conservative events or, something related to that. And you see somebody with a Confederate flag and then you say, oh my God, everybody here's a racist. Well, I know that that's not the case. In every movement, you're going to have people on the extremes, and you don't and you shouldn't define a movement based on those extremes.
Ted, I appreciate the call and taking time to talk with us through Joe Biden. And I know you and I have different policy disagreements, but to your credit, you're always willing to come on the show and have a good conversation. I appreciate that, Ted.
Oh, listen, and Jeff, I just want to really stress this. So I don't want you to think like I'm trying to throw you over the bus or in front of the bus, because I'm not. I love the fact of how you're doing your show. And I love the fact that you bring people on from both sides. And it's great you brought Dave on, because Dave needs to go out there, needs to explain what he was doing, and then people can make their, not judgment, because the only person that judges is God, but determine what they think, and are they aligned with that or not? And if they're aligned with it, then so be it. We have to respect that. And providing a forum in order for that to happen should give you a lot of kudos. And you've really embraced that with vigor. And the fact that you allow me to come on and say the things that I do and my views says a lot about how you approach this. And I just want to say thank you for that.
Ted, you'll always have an open line here.
Always.
Thanks again. Ted Trimpa, Democrat strategist and political consultant, joining the Jeff and Bill Show. What did you think of that conversation? Give us a call, 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971, or text us on the 710 KNUS app. I want to talk to you about my friend Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team with Keller Williams Sell. Look, I've gotten to know Gay through this radio show, and she is absolutely a delightful person. So there's 3 reasons why, if you got to sell a home, Gay Ribble is the best person to use. 1, it's a stressful thing to do to sell a home and you need somebody that can walk you through all of those challenges and help you. And she is an absolutely delightful person that will help you through one of the most stressful things you're going to do. Number 2, she's with us on the values. She supports this show, but more importantly, she gives back to orphans in the state of Colorado, because she was an orphan herself and wants to help those kids find their forever family. Number 3, she is a real pro. We all got friends and family members that are real estate agents that want our business, but at the end of the day, this is a business decision, and Gay Ribble will help you get an average of $30,000 more for the sale of your home. Could you use an extra $30,000? That's precisely why you need Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team. Here's an unbeatable offer. Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team will help you sell your house for 100% of the asking price, or Gay will pay you the difference. It's an offer you simply cannot refuse. Get 100% of the asking price guaranteed with Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team. Here's their phone number, 833-301-SOLD. That's 833-301-SOLD, or go to gayasthebuyers.com. That's GAYE hasthebuyers.com. All right, we'll continue with your calls and texts. What do you think of Ted Trimpa's response? Billy, I'd like to get your thoughts. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
At this hour in the UK, I'm John Beaver, and here are the top stories we're following. Last night's CNN presidential debate gave voters a rare side-by-side look at the 2 oldest candidates ever to seek the US presidency. President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump traded attacks on abortion, immigration, and their handling of the economy. There's been international reaction to the debate as well. Coverage in China has focused on the physical condition of the candidates. Chinese state newspaper The Global Times says the ages of Joe Biden and Donald Trump betray flaws in the US political system. From Hong Kong, Laura Westbrook reports.
Both candidates are vying to be tough on Beijing and have similar economic policies to combat China's rise. Trump is 78 and Biden is 81. And the Global Times says the ages of the candidates paints the US as a gerontocracy. It calls the debate a reality show, focusing less on policies and more about their on-the-spot performance. The report also quotes the Chinese political scientists saying that there was nothing substantial to debate and viewers were instead more interested in their physical appearance. In Hong Kong, Laura Westbrook for Salem News Channel.
And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm John Beaver in the UK on Salem News Channel.
Fascinating conversation with Ted Trimpa. Got a little spicy there at the end, but, he's free to critique me anytime he wants.
Yeah, and that's what makes this show different.
And he even acknowledged that.
Yeah.
So
that's the thing.
I'm trying to know where to start with Ted. Look, it honestly, part of his response reminded me of the early days right after the Access Hollywood tapes came out about Donald Trump. And Steve Bannon gets into a meeting right after that and says, "We don't stop. I don't care. You wear the jersey. You wear it all the way, buckled down, and we're going to drive this thing forward." His response to me seemed pretty similar. Yeah, you shouldn't have run for a second term, Joe. Yeah, we should have had a primary as the Democrat Party. Joe Biden would have been great as somebody who came in and said, "I'm going to stop Donald Trump, but then I'm going to get out of the way and allow, the young Democrats in leadership in Michigan, Colorado, California to have a primary, challenge themselves on the national stage." But he didn't. So we are stuck with him. And we're going to go all the way with Joe Biden. That's what the chairman of the Democrat Party seemed to say. That's what Jason Crow seemed to say. We're going all in. And me, I'm like, there's a few things I'm frustrated with. Number one, and we just didn't have time because I only told Ted we'd have him for 30 minutes. But the idea that the Democrats have been hiding this. Who the hell's running the country right now? I don't know. This guy can't string a sentence together. He's coming up with complex policy options to address the most pressing problems this country's facing. And on the international level as well.
I was thinking about that this weekend, and then something hit me as I'm walking the dog, and it all of a sudden hit me that maybe that's not the attack you think it is. And maybe the Republicans that are saying, "Oh my gosh, Joe Biden's lost it. Who's running the country?" Maybe that's not the attack everybody thinks it is, because things aren't spinning out of control. We may dislike the direction of the country, but it's not as if the wheels are coming off. So the idea that even if he's not in charge, that all the people he has around them still keep the government functioning and running isn't necessarily the knock you think it is, in my opinion, that who's running the country.
Okay, I see that, Billy, but I also go, holy cow, we got a deep state. This is every argument out there that we're operating under a deep state, because I can't tell you who's running the country. They don't seem to be elected. It seems to be some bureaucrat that's running this country at this point.
But isn't that what happens in any administration? I mean, isn't that what happens? You put someone in charge of, Trump had people in charge of, office education and interior and had all
that other stuff.
That's what you do. You put people in charge that then run the bureaucracy. So the idea that the bureaucracy is running isn't the indictment that people think it is. That's just something that hit me over the weekend. I'm sitting here going, I get the idea that, oh my God, he may not be making the decisions, but the idea the wheels aren't falling off the bus says a lot possibly about the bureaucracy in charge. And I don't think it says, oh my God, the deep state's in charge, because that the deep state is supposed to be something that's moving behind the scenes regardless of who's in charge. That's not what you see here. The deep state isn't enacting Biden's liberal policies. That wouldn't be what you'd expect the deep state to do. So
I think that's exactly what I'd expect the deep state to do. Wouldn't they be enacting liberal policies?
That's only if you're scared of a deep state. Why wouldn't the deep state enact Republican conservative policies? You're just assuming it's a liberal thing. Deep state.
That's because I think they've surveyed most federal employees, and it's like way left Democrats.
But again, that's the idea that the Democrats are that the person that is the rank and file employee at State Department or EPA or else is doing the job how they want to do, and we all know that's not the case. That's not the case in any job. Now, your boss doesn't come to you and go, "How would you like your job to work today?" Nobody asks you that. You get the directives from up high and they funnel down. It's just this assumption that the deep state is a super liberal group. It doesn't matter. The idea that the bureaucracy is functioning means the bureaucracy is functioning. because it's not as if the deep state has been pulling levers behind Biden. Biden put people in roles, and we can disagree with the choices they're making, but it's again, and this is the problem that I'm saying is I don't think that it's the indictment the Republicans think it is for those squishy voters, because the squishy voters are going to go, and they're going to go, who's in charge? And they're going to go, well, stuff's not on fire per se, or we're not spinning out of control per se. I'm not looking at this as if this is the end of America ever. Stuff's functioning. So even if I don't think Biden's making the choices day to day, the people that are there making the choices, and in fact, that squishy independent or unaffiliated voter could think, well, even though he doesn't have the elevator going all the way to the top floors, he's at least put people in the jobs that are making sure it runs. Rather than trying not to make it run.
I think you could see it in two ways. One, there's an Office episode where they don't have a manager and everything goes just fine.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So you could make essentially Billy's argument that, look, people can do their jobs. They're competent people.
Yeah.
They don't need a president at the top to do so. I, on the other hand, look at this and I go, okay, you had the Chevron deference case that came out on Friday, which was an attack on the administrative or a blow to the administrative state. Because it has way too much power. Congress does essentially nothing, even though they're supposed to be the branch that has the most power. I can't tell you who's running this country because I think for two reasons. One, I think there's a collection of people around Joe Biden that are making the decisions for the direction of this country. But two, I think you have a progressive federal bureaucracy. And I've seen this from Trump appointees who said over and over again that the internal pushback they got from the quote unquote experts within the federal government was so strong because they have an agenda. They've put themselves in leadership and they're driving the state in progressive ways. And it doesn't really matter who you put at the top. Even if it's Donald Trump, he faces a whole lot of problems. He learned that his first term. That's why you have Project 2025, Heritage Foundation, and when conservatives get in control, they're going to clear out this deep state. But I think that the whole Joe Biden presidency is revealing this to us. All right, we're just out of time right now. Joan, Mike, you're up next. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
All right, let's get to the phone lines. Joan, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Joan.
Hey, I want people to get a paper and pen, okay? Because you can go to the website for Colorado, and you spell out Colorado, dems.org/platform. Well, what do you know? It equals the same platform as the cpusa.org platform, which is Communist Party USA, okay? So Kent Theory funded the open primaries, but the goal is ranked choice voting. And this man, Trimpa, supports ranked choice voting, where you don't have any choice in being able to nominate somebody. It totally destroys what was established in 1910 according to our state party laws. And the state party law 102, Dave Williams did exactly what was allowed. So the condemning Dave Williams over and over again for standing up against, for the kids, it is outrageous. Trimpa says better. Well, he's got all these Bibles, so it's better that a millstone be placed around a person's neck if they mislead or harm the child. But it's you've got to be 8 or it's too late is part of the homosexual agenda. So we better know what we're facing. And Dave Williams stood up like no other leader in the Republican Party. So anyway, I think people better get a grip on what's going on.
So you would agree with Dave Williams that the entire LGBTQ community are groomers?
That's what he did not say that. He said
did. No, he did in the very first sentence in that email. He called the community groomers.
He did. Well, I guess he's just going along with the Bible, and I think he ought to open up Romans 1.
The Bible doesn't say anything about them being groomers. Doesn't say that at all.
Look, we never went through this kind of schooling. I have to pay to groom the kids. If you go to change.org, there's a page where it says we can start this transgender stuff.
Wait, Joan,
from the time they're kindergartens. You
Joan,
just go to change.org. It's horrific.
You're grooming kids? You're grooming kids, Joan?
Yes.
You are.
Change.org.
That's
you
not
will
good.
see.
No, but you said you were. Why are you grooming kids? What are you possibly doing?
How are you conditioning?
Why would you condition them? Why would you do this? What's going on?
Well, you condition people to actually the real principles of the foundation of America.
Oh, so you think people can be groomed into being gay? Okay.
What?
Fair enough.
Well, yes, absolutely.
Okay, so you chose. Joan, so did you choose? You choose? Joan, I'm just curious. We're running out of time.
Get them
when did
by
you choose?
8 or it's too late.
Joan, I know. I'm curious. When did you choose? Who was the first little girl you had a crush on, and you chose heterosexual? To be heterosexual.
I never, ever had that kind of...
That's weird, Joan. You never, ever had that feeling, but you assume others did. That's strange. That says a hell of a lot more about you, Joan, than it does about anybody else, honestly. You've made an assumption about the behaviors of other people that you didn't go through yourself. A behavior you didn't experience, but you're assuming others did. That says a lot more about you than it does about those other people, to be honest. I hate to bring it that way, but that's what happens.
To be fair, the first sentence of the GOP Pride email does attack groomers, but it doesn't say that all gay people are groomers. It says the month of June has arrived, and once again, the godless groomers in our society want to attack what is decent, holy, and righteous so they can ultimately harm our children.
And the whole thing is about the LGBTQ community. So it's about the groomers.
But he didn't lump them all together.
Yes, he did, based on that sentence. Yes.
He just said the godless groomers.
Yeah, but the entire thing is about the community.
All right, we'll continue the conversation. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
8 a.m. in the Mile High City, and you have tuned into the very spicy Jeff and Bill show. True to form, we've got opinions all over the place.
Yeah.
You're listening
so
to
cool.
710 KNUS. I was just joking with Billy going, Bill, true to form. We got some text messages saying, well done, Billy. Way to hold people accountable. And then other people saying,
Yeah.
Billy, stop talking over other people. Let her
know.
finish her sentence.
And part of this is exactly when we go back to what Ted Trimpa talked about, is the idea of just the different ideas and different personalities and different perspectives and different political philosophies intersecting. You don't ever find this anywhere else. Most of the time, it is a mutual appreciation society that we bring people that agree with us on, and we talk about how remarkably smart and intelligent we are, and aren't we just the bestest people in the world? And you hear that so often in this genre, but that's not what we do. We break as many rules as we can each and every morning, and then we have meetings after the show. It's normally how it works, and they talk to me about it.
We do have meetings after the show. That's exactly
Yes,
right.
we do.
We're gearing up for a whole nother hour of engaging discussions, critical analysis, and most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. We are closely monitoring decisions coming out of the U.S. Supreme Court. Stand by for that. We're expecting a decision today on Trump regarding immunity. You're not going to want to miss that, so stick around for the show. In the meantime, I'm going to turn it over to Blake Olson with his analysis and news. Good morning, Blake.
All right. Thank you, Jeff, and thank you, Billy. 74 and cloudy in Denver, expecting highs in the upper 80s today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, as Jeff just mentioned, today is the last day for Supreme Court decisions this term. Top among them is the question of presidential immunity. Former President Trump's lawyers have argued Trump is immune from prosecution for his alleged crimes committed while in office.
Joe, you did such a great job. You answered every question. You knew all the facts. And let me ask the crowd, what did Trump do? Why?
Yeah. She's like a proud mother, Jill Biden. All right. Vote for Jill. Sounds like she's the president now. President Biden spent Sunday at Camp David discussing the future of his re-election campaign with family members. He'll have to agree to step down if all this happens. But Georgia's Raphael Warnock loves Biden. He has given his life for us, and don't you forget it.
His entire life of public service. And over the last 4 years, he's been showing up for the American people. He's been showing up for seniors.
And for illegal immigrants. Here's Donna Brazil, longtime Democrat, all in as well.
Over the last 72 hours, people have been calling me. My phone has blown up. At one point, I thought I would just go drop it in the Potomac, but hell, I can't pay for a replacement. The fact is, people are nervous. There's a lot of anxiety. But among those of us who are delegates, those of us who know Joe Biden, yes, we can say two things simultaneously. He had a bad night, but he also is a good man, a strong president, and Democrats still believe that this race is winnable. That's why they're sticking with Joe Biden.
That sounds like they are for now. North Dakota Republican Governor Doug Burgum thought to be one of the finalists for Trump's VP, and he's not putting up with this narrative that Republicans are the only ones who challenge elections.
In 2000, the Democrats challenged the election. They had every right to challenge it. It went down to one county, the Hanging Chads in Broward County in Florida. In 2016, yes, Hillary Clinton conceded the election, but then immediately after that began, what's still going on today, a smear campaign about whether the election results in 16 were legitimate.
And former Trump advisor Steve Bannon will report to federal prison in Connecticut today. Bannon is set to serve a 4-month sentence at a federal correctional institute in Danbury, and says conservatives seek justice as they fight lawfare and jailing political opponents.
What we're saying is we want justice.
We want to have full investigations, and then if criminal charges come up, then criminal charges come up.
Imagine that. Millions of travelers are on the move ahead of the Independence Day holiday. The TSA says it expects to screen over 30 million passengers through Monday. AAA predicts a record 60 million people will be traveling by car over the holiday. In Colorado, according to Gas Buddy, the cheapest gas right now is $2.34 at a loaf and jug in Parker. Westminster police investigating a deadly stabbing that happened at a local Super 8 motel early Saturday morning. Police found a man suffering from a stab wound to the chest when they arrived at the motel, and he was pronounced dead at the scene. Police say the suspect knew the victim. The suspect is described as a Hispanic man, 6'2", with brown hair and brown eyes. Denver police investigating a series of stabbings that injured 3 people over the weekend. They happened late Saturday night into Sunday morning. 2 of them occurred near Colfax. 1 person was arrested in connection with the 3rd stabbing, while police still developing suspect information in the other 2 cases. No word on the victim's current conditions.
Nicky Lopez, little grounder to second. B-Rod over to first, yes! And the Rockies indeed outlast the White Sox.
5-4 in 14 innings. 70 in Greenwood Village, 71 in Westminster, 74 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue. It's Monday morning. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
The 710 5-day forecast, partly cloudy to cloudy, warm, near 90. A few isolated showers and thunderstorms around today, near 60 tonight. Mid-80s Tuesday, a couple of late-day thunderstorms, near 90 late-day thunder on Wednesday. Not as warm Thursday for the 4th of July and Friday, with highs only 70s and low 80s, with a few isolated showers and thunderstorms. Weather sponsored by Branch Planning. Some income annuities are paying 25 to 45% more than last year. Get a free retirement review by calling Branch Planning today at 720-651-9800. Find out more at branchplanning.com. I'm meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show, the only show in Denver where you're getting both sides and people are invited into the conversation. Tune into those other stations, and someone will read you a script of news written out on the East Coast, or they'll give you a monologue. But today, you're invited to be a part of the conversation. Phone lines are full. As soon as somebody drops off, be sure to call in 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971. If you can't get through, feel free to text us on the 710 KNUS app. We always like to get your feedback. Let's go to Mike in Littleton. Mike, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning.
Good morning, Jeff. Hey, I called. By the way, Trimpa was he's good. Bring him back. Although I disagree with him on a lot of stuff. But what disturbed me about what he said regarding getting behind Biden and these other people like Jason Crow and Donna Brazile, the whole gang stepping forward. It's disturbing because we're putting politics above principle. The principle is we have to have, as a country, a competent person in the presidency. I think it's the 25th Amendment that was put in place because of Wilson. It's obvious to anybody that follows conservative media that Biden's been going downhill for years, physically and mentally. It looks like during that debate, the rest of the country somehow became aware, finally. But he needs to take, the Democrats need to say, okay, you want to run again? Take a mental competency test. Publish the results, just like Trump did.
Mike, it made me angry that the people around him have been lying to the American people for a long time. And if you criticized Joe Biden and his inability to put together a sentence and all that, it was considered a conspiracy theorist, all that. We were right about that. They hid him from us. That was fully exposed. And I'm angry about the fact that those that lead our country are so willing to lie.
Jeff, I'm with you totally. To me, it's the great pretending. We've been doing this for 2-3 years now. And the fact that we're willing to double down tells me that people are so into their politics and their power trips that every principle gets thrown out the window. And so we're going to charge ahead and get this guy reelected, even though there's 330 million people whose lives are at stake here, and probably 8 billion in the world if he starts a nuclear war with Russia. And we can't put that principle first, that we have to have a competent person in the White House.
Mike, I appreciate the call. Thanks. Mike from Littleton. His line will be open 303-696-1971.
The only thing is that Mike assumes that there's another competent person in the race. That's the only thing that
Donald Trump came out
really
looked totally competent.
No,
looked smart, looked organized, was funny, was engaging. I thought Trump did great in that debate.
Again, that's going to be the focus I will have on your opinion there is on the verb that you use, which is accurate, but also says he's not necessarily competent, because the verb that you used was looked. It didn't say that he was. He didn't demonstrate it. He looked. Yes, he performed well, but did the words coming out of his pie hole demonstrate competency? Not in the least. Not in the least. And that's the problem, is we are stuck in a race that in many ways we have two incompetent people running. And that is our fault. Not the Democrat Party, not the Republican Party, us, the Americans. We are the ones that universally have allowed it to get here. It's our fault. We have two incompetent choices. Winning, this is great. What happened to Charlie Sheen and his tiger blood? That's what I need. Sorry.
We're tracking U.S. Supreme Court case, still waiting on the results on the immunity case that have not been released yet. We'll get to the phone lines here in just a second. 303-696-1971. I want to talk to you about my friends at QC Kinetics. Look, life in Colorado is awesome this time of year, but not so much if you got joint pain in your knees or shoulders. And as we all get older, that pain comes in. The last thing you want to do is go under the knife, because you open yourself up to so many other complications. It takes forever to recover. I hate the surgeries I've had. The good news is that QC Kinetics is here with the most advanced treatments using regenerative medicine. What does that mean? It means your own body helps heal. They harness the healing power from your own body to restore and repair damaged joint tissue. So many of our listeners have done this. Guys in the office are getting this done, and they are so grateful they're pain-free. QC Kinetics can get you moving again with no surgery, no drugs, and no downtime. This is the future of medicine, and the local medical professionals at QC Kinetics can get you started with a free consultation. QC Kinetics has clinics in Aurora and Superior. If your shoulder or back is always hurting, if it hurts to walk or lift something, you need to check this out. You can get lasting relief. Do it now so you can enjoy the Colorado summertime like you deserve. Next generation joint pain relief is here at QC Kinetics. Visit QCkinetics.com, painfreecolorado.com, or call 303-900-8986. That's 303-900-8986, or visit painfreecolorado.com. Let's go to Ralph in Colorado. Ralph, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning.
Good morning. Couple points. First, Joe Biden is the only person in America who can assure the reelection of Donald Trump. Second, in order to win, the Dems need a candidate who can turn the age issue back against Trump. What we don't really think about is that Trump will become president for the second time 5 months older than Joe Biden did when he lost Afghanistan. You're talking about, how shall I say, the effects of age and dementia on all of us. Believe me, I'm as old as Trump, and I know that. So let's be very clear.
Ralph, I think
Trump is an old man.
I think you make a great point. Would you support age limit restrictions on office holders?
I don't think you can do it. But I think we actually have age limit restrictions. It's called the voting booth. Bill made an excellent point, same point my old grandmother made. She's not with us, of course. And that is when you point a finger at someone, you got three pointing back at you. We're pointing a finger at the president and the president wannabe second term Trump. And we're saying, oh, look at them, they're terrible. Well, you forget you got three fingers pointing back at us, the American people. We get the government we deserve. I'm not sure I like that, but that's the way facts work.
Ralph, I appreciate the call. Thanks so much. Ralph's line will be open 303-696-1971.
And he's right.
303-696-1971. Go ahead, Bill.
Two bad choices. And the fact that Trump is going to be as old as Biden was when he took office the first time. The idea that he's going to be in the same cycle. And that's the problem. And that's the problem both parties have, is you can't use the he's an old man argument, because they're both old men. And that's the argument I've had for a long time, that if you put Trump and Biden into a room with a bunch of other guys around the same age, you won't look at it and go, what are all those young guys doing hanging out with those old guys? You look at a room of old men. And that's how it's going to be viewed.
Yes, you can look at our society and go, these are the reflections of our society. We have problems with them, all that stuff. But I actually think we're missing the point. Bill, you're a debate guy, so I want you to put yourself in the position of a Republican.
Yeah.
Why, from the Republicans' perspective, did Donald Trump win the primary?
Because there is, in my opinion, there is a belief system that he won last time, and there's a belief system that he was robbed of his win in 2020. And because of that, because he was able to grasp a win against Hillary when everything said that he couldn't, he then is a winner. And regardless of any other choice, I'm going to choose the person that won last time. And I believe psychologically it's the same reason that you have someone like Joe Flacco continue to have a job in the NFL, while you have certain coaches get chances over and over and over again, despite the fact that whatever game they're coaching has moved on. And that's the reason, is that's what I believe is the psychological, that they've done it before. So let's see if they can do it again.
That's a good point. Here's why I think we are stuck with these two people. Here's my thesis.
Yeah.
And I'll go for both Donald Trump and Joe Biden. For Donald Trump, the reason we have him is because a majority of Republican primary voters believe the system is rigged. There's a deep state. The federal government is too big, too corrupt. And at this point in American history, you need somebody with the sharpest elbows, willing to go all the way to end this corruption within the federal government. That is why they are behind Donald Trump. The people behind Joe Biden do not necessarily love Joe Biden. They believe he is the best guy because he has proven already to stop Donald Trump. And they want somebody, they genuinely believe that Donald Trump is a threat to democracy and the republic and the Constitution, and we must stop him. And he has won before. He's a middle-of-the-road Democrat. He's not a crazy AOC, Bernie Sanders leftist. So we are going to support him. That's why they didn't push back too much during the primary season and say we need to get this guy out. That there is at least a good number of people at the highest levels of the Democrat Party leadership that believe he's already won, he can win again, and that he generally governs pretty middle of the road. That's where I think so you can look at this and go, we are stuck with two old people, out of touch people with no principles. One's a convicted felon. One has a son that's a convicted felon. Or you can look at it and go, that's the big debate our nation is having right now.
Yeah. And I have to peel back the onion, because I sit unaffiliated. I know many people think that I'm this bleeding heart liberal and this crazy person. I might be a little bit of crazy. But the idea, when you talk about the Republicans sitting back and looking at the deep state and things fixed and everything, and there are people that are back in smoke-filled rooms making all the decisions. and then they show up in the primary and vote. That's strange. It's very weird. It's very weird that if you have this conclusion that the deep state is running everything, because remember, deep state's not liberal or Republican. Deep state is just the government moving forward, regardless of who's in power.
Yep.
Yeah. So your primary vote would matter if that is true, that the state takes over and the state then doesn't matter. And that's the part that I think is always interesting. That's why I asked Joe from Arvada earlier today why he planned on voting, given his assumption that the elections are rigged. If that's your assumption, okay, but it's weird that you then would go through the performative act of doing something you don't think matters. I just think that's really weird, where I honestly think that because of the behavior that I see with many Republicans, I don't think if it really got down to it, that they would hold that belief that they claim about deep state and rigged elections. I think if it really came down to brass tacks, it's more to do with a loss and anger over how the loss happened than actually a true belief. If they had to go to war over it, like pick up a gun and go fight somebody over it, or say go to court over it, I don't think they'd be there. That's just a personal opinion. I think that there's more emotion inside of there, and that the deep state gives them permission for that emotion and those conclusions, regardless of the facts.
We'll get to Jacqueline in just a second. I want to talk to you about my friend Dan Caplis and Dan Caplis Law. I've known Dan for well over a decade. This guy is pro-life, pro-family, pro-America. That matters because who you choose to represent you in an injury case says a lot about you to everyone involved in the case. Dan Caplis, he's the son of a police officer. He's also a former seminarian who has dedicated the last 40 years of his life to helping people who are hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. But more than that, Dan is a titan in the courtroom, and you got to win if you're injured. Dan is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan Caplis is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado history. Dan Caplis Law is the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and Colorado Avalanche. Dan Caplis Law, a serious firm for serious cases. But look, they're not only reserved for the wealthy and elite, they accept righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that Dan can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. If you need Dan's help, give him a call, 303-770-5551, 303-770-5551. If I was hurt, Dan Caplis Law would be my first call. Visit dancaplisLaw.com. That's Dan, CAPLISlaw.com. Let's go to Jacqueline. Sydney, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710, KNUS. Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning, fellas. I don't know how much time here I have, so I'll try to be brief. You know what I think? I watched, I'll tell you, this is how old I am. I watched Secretariat win the Triple Crown.
Oh, wow.
My first president was Ronald Reagan. I will tell you now what I watched the other night, and I did watch that off and on. You didn't miss much. But I watched a small coup happen.
Oh, what do you mean by that?
Well, I tell you what, we've all seen the decline in Joe Biden. We knew it when he got in. They kept him in the basement. When he did come out, you couldn't recognize the guy. I think he's been that way, I would say a good 5-6 years at least. And getting him in, however they got him in, I'm not going to argue with anybody there. But I think Obama wanted his third term. And I think we all see now that Joe Biden has never ran this country. And if you look at the policies, the things that have happened now, foreign involvement in the Middle East, the border, inflation, gas, bank, Wall Street, even this Homeland Security business and the CIA. And I'll tell you something, pushing the gay agenda was something that the Obamas did, Barack Obama did, and it started a mess. But I'll tell you, that speech he gave about standing up in front of a bunch of people and saying he was going to remake the United States of America. Do you know, I think he gave that speech in Denver, Colorado, and he gave that to a majority of middle white listeners. His crowd was predominantly middle white class. Now, that's the problem with Colorado. But I think, and if I'm wrong, I'll eat my words, but I will bet you that he was the perfect stooge, the perfect patsy. He wanted to be president so badly he'd have done anything. So did Miss Jilly. But I'll bet you there's a small group of people in Washington, D.C. and around the world, like Loretta Lynch, Eric Holder, Susan Rice, even Bill and Hillary Clinton probably sit in on it, and Barack and Michelle Obama. I think they've run this country into the ground, and the next president's going to have a hell of a job fixing it. But I think people see this. If they think that we did not see this feeble old man, they're crazy. Now, the CIA are the masters of disguise. Look at what they do in Hollywood to change people, to create people, to create things.
But the CIA is external, FBI is internal. CIA's function is normally external based on how they're looking at foreign influence. They're not focused on domestic influence. That's the FBI. But hang on a sec, Jacqueline. I want to ask you something about the idea of, let's just assume, okay, I disagree with you that Hillary and Holder and Barack Obama are in some smoke-filled room pulling the levers for the U.S. and to make everything happen. And they're going to start wars in the Middle East, and they're going to create inflation, and they're going to make our prices rise. Why? Don't they want to stay in power? Why would they do that?
I think they're in power. I think they've stayed in power.
No, but hang on.
I don't think they ever will.
Don't they lose their power if Joe Biden gets taken out of the White House? And this is all I'm asking is, let's say that you, myself, and Jeff are those people behind the curtain in the White House, and we're making all the choices. If our choices are, as you say, so bad that the guy we have as our puppet in front of us is going to get removed, we're not good puppet masters because we're losing our power. That's the problem I have with the assumption that there are these people behind Joe Biden pulling the levers to make all these bad things happen. Because if that's true, those people pulling the levers lose their ability to pull those in the future. And I can't imagine that's what they're trying to do.
I understand what you're saying. I'm saying we saw a coup. You wait and see. They're going to drop a bombshell. They're going to drop a bomb on everyone, and you're going to be...
Jacqueline,
I'm going to come back, and I'm going to say, I told you so.
Okay.
Who do you think is going to be the top of the ticket then for the Democrat Party?
Well, I've got some people that are warming up in the bullpen, but I'm not going to come out and say right now. I'm not, because I'm telling you what, we're going to see a bomb drop. And this guy, he's used up his value here, Joe Biden has. And they will replace him. He could die. He could have another stroke, or he could be, flat on his back. So I think something's going to happen here, and we're going to see it. But what you saw was the Democrats show you exactly who he was. They allowed him to go out like that. They have here in the last probably 3 or 4 months, let him off, grabbed him, took him. We've all seen that. It's been obvious to everyone that he's declined. Well, he was declined in the first place. And this guy that showed up at that presidential address, I still, to this day, think something was not kosher with that, because that guy to me didn't look like Joe Biden. Really, he didn't present himself as Joe Biden.
Jacqueline, I appreciate the call. Thanks so much. Jacqueline's line will be open 303-696-1971. Billy, I want to ask you about Ted's remarks. Ted Trimpa joined us at the top of the 7 o'clock hour. Wow, that was 90 minutes ago.
I know.
Man, we've had a lot of conversations since him.
Yeah.
Of how offended he was to the idea that Jared Polis would make a move at all to position himself to be the Democrat nominee.
Yeah.
Said if anybody that did that would be a rat jumping ship.
Yeah. And the
wow.
Yeah, it was.
Hold on, I want to get to you in just a second. I want to talk to you all about advanced hair restoration. You know, the Jeff and Bill Show's been named the top talk radio show in Denver by Westward. Well, our friends at Advanced Hair Restoration were named the top hair restoration company in Denver. We're brothers. Improving the city. Everyone always asks, what makes advanced hair restoration different? Allow me to share, along with some details on, get this, their once-a-year summer savings event. First off, Advanced Hair stands by the results, and their before and afters are second to none. With Advanced Hair, your own natural hair is guaranteed to grow. Secondly, Advanced Hair combines top-rated physicians with modern technology, creating a concierge quality experience that's hard to find elsewhere. And lastly, Advanced Hair's Advanced FUE begins regrowing your own natural hair the very next day. Quick, simple, and easy. Now, if you have a flexible schedule this summer and you've been waiting for that special savings opportunity, it's here. Advanced Hair's summer savings event will get you the most hair for your dollar. It's their best offer ever. For details and to schedule your free consultation, go to 720-459-HAIR. One-day treatment, life-changing results. Your new hair is guaranteed to grow. Before and afters can be seen at advancedhair.com. Give them a call, 720-459-HAIR, or visit advancedhair.com. Billy, didn't you think that was interesting? That if you were Jared Polis or Gavin Newsom or Gretchen Whitmer, and you were even texting a Democrat major donor going, hey, I'm here, guys. I'm here. I'm ready to make the move. A rat jumping ship.
Yeah. And unfortunately, while you were doing the stuff for our friends at Advanced Hair, I'm looking at the clock and it's 8:30. So I'm going to have to wait to tell you my response until we get back from this next break.
Would you consider Jared Polis positioning himself to take on the Democrat nomination for president a rat jumping ship? We'll get to that and more. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Now, there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts, text message your favorite local hosts, call the show, get the latest headlines, and enter contests to win prizes. All in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
Major breaking news coming out of the U.S. Supreme Court with regards to Trump and immunity, and a vote of 6-3. The court holds that a former president has absolute immunity in his core constitutional powers. Former presidents are also entitled to at least a presumption of immunity for their official acts. There is no immunity, the court holds, for unofficial acts. The core constitutional powers are things like appointing ambassadors and foreign governments. The court explains that it does not need to decide in this case whether immunity for official acts is presumptive or absolute. The court, in part 3 of its opinion, by the way, it's 119 pages, so we're quickly scanning it, indicates that in this case, no court has thus far considered how to distinguish between official and unofficial acts. Moreover, Roberts continues, the lower court rendered their decision on a highly expedient basis and, quote, did not analyze the conduct alleged in this indictment to decide which of it should be categorized as official or unofficial. And it wasn't briefed before the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court isn't going to make any determination now. Instead, it will send the case back to the lower courts for further proceedings, although it does offer some guidance. Certain allegations, such as those involving Trump's discussion with the acting attorney general, are readily categorized in light of the nature of the president's official relationship to the office held by that individual. Other allegations, such as those involving Trump's interaction with the vice president, state officials, and certain private parties, and his comments to the general public, present more difficult questions. Roberts is still reading from his opinion at this moment. So it looks like they've distinguished between official acts and unofficial acts and said the courts, particularly the lower courts, need to do a better job determining the difference between the two.
That's interesting because in some ways, a little bit of a loss for Trump because he gets no absolute immunity.
Right.
So he does not get that one. However, that statement by Roberts that the phone call to the Georgia Secretary of State could be considered presidential act is really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting because I'm curious how that is not an act by candidate Trump, not president, but instead President Trump. I am curious where that conversation falls under the purview of the function of the White House versus falling under the function of the candidate that is concerned about the results of the election. I would love to hear Roberts delineate that, why that conversation is different, and why that's a conversation the president is having and not the candidate is having at that point, especially given the lawyers that were with him at the time.
Mm-hmm.
That, I think, is interesting. Who did he assemble around him? And that, I think, also gives us insight as to the type of conversation he was having. Because I'm not certain that he had a whole lot of DOJ people on that phone call, which would be interesting.
I think this is really good news for Joe Biden.
Yeah, it is.
Because he's not going to get sued in his personal capacity for his failure to protect people at the border.
Yeah, nor should he. And that was always the thing. That was always the thing. The idea is nobody's ever been able to sue a president for any individual act. It's why people couldn't sue Barack Obama for when drone strikes killed innocent members of families. And it's the same reason. That's just how things go. It's why you can't sue the military for sending your son or daughter on a stupid mission.
Yeah, but if your daughter was attacked and raped by an illegal immigrant because Joe Biden was inept, purposely left the border open, or released the guy, I don't know. I'd be seeking retribution.
Yeah, but you'd have to be able to prove, again, as I like the language, the verb purposefully. That would be the issue. And that is going to be difficult. It's just like when you get into court and you have to prove actual malice when it comes to libel and defamation. Proving actual malice is difficult. Proving that this was purposeful would be really, really difficult inside a court. You can say there are lots of things conclusions that we can draw based on certain decisions, but proving it's purposeful would be tough.
We're going to get to Jay here in just a second. I want to talk to you about my friends at QC Kinetics. Look, as we all get older, those joints start to not work as great. My elbow gives me problems. Life in Colorado is awesome this time of year. You want to be outside, but you can't enjoy it because of that joint pain with your knee, shoulders, back, or elbow. The good news is you don't have to quite go under the knife. I know that at some point it might be something you have to do, but save it for a last resort, because the minute you go under that knife, you open up all these other complications to your life. The good news is that QC Kinetics is here with the most advanced treatments using what's called regenerative medicine. They harness the healing power from your own body. Restore and repair your damaged joint tissue. So many of our listeners have done this, and they're grateful. Guys in the office getting this done right now. I'm going to visit them. Goodness, tomorrow, going over to QC Kinetics. QC Kinetics can get you moving again, too, with no surgery, no drugs, and no downtime. This is the future of medicine, and the local medical professionals at QC Kinetics can get you started with a free consultation. QC Kinetics is clinics in Aurora and Superior. If your shoulder back is always hurting, if it hurts to walk or lift something, you need to check them out and get lasting relief. Do it now so you can enjoy the Colorado summertime like you deserve. This is the best time of year to live in Colorado. Next generation joint pain relief is here at QC Kinetics, 303-900-8986. That's 303-900-8986. Get a free consultation at painfreecolorado.com. Let's go to Jay in Denver. Jay, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning.
Good morning. Great show.
Thank you. What's on your mind?
Well, this new ruling, I haven't read it, but all presidents, vice presidents, Senate, House, governors, myself, military contractor, we would all be responsible for the things that we've done. And trust me, I have been responsible for pointing the direction to where the enemy is via satellite and carpet bombing in Iraq. I mean, this ruling, I hope, says that in official capacity, which President Trump was president at the time, he made the statements before the Pence ruled for putting Biden in. They're also responsible for protecting the country. So if they saw malfeasance, just hypothetically, let's don't argue that point, then as the president and vice president, they have to protect the country from malfeasance, which could be a fake election as a president.
No, that's an interesting point.
That's my point.
Yeah.
So
I think,
again,
well, and I think
president.
Trump would be very fair to make that argument in court. Right? He believed that this election was rigged, that there was fraud taking place, and he was doing his best to make sure that Americans had a free and fair election, and so was pressing back against
I got a question for both Jay and Jeff. Where does Donald Trump's belief end and the office of the presidency begin based on his duties?
Yep.
Where is that line? Because the President Trump can believe something, but just because he believes it doesn't mean it's a presidential act or something that is covered inside of his job. And the pushback I would have about President Trump believing that he lost the election, especially when he reaches out to the Georgia Secretary of State, based on the timeline, if I'm correct, we had already had investigations by the Department of Justice, and Trump had already paid for 2 private investigations himself that came back with legit election, no fraud. At what point are the president's beliefs just his beliefs and not covered by the presidential seal?
Well, I'll take it first and then let us hear what Jeff has to say. But what's on a president's mind is very important. And there's presidents that worked for the Reagan administration as a contractor. And he believed that we were under peril from the Soviet Union, and we still are today. And it couldn't be proven. However, I will tell you that we had to go through and blow up the West German embassy in 1982 because the West German embassy, our embassy on the other side, on our side of the wall, the Berlin Wall, was so heavily infested with electronic bugs because they hired contractors that said they weren't Russian, but they were. The building was exploded. And then it was rebuilt by U.S. contractors. So there's belief, fact, Great point, Billy. I agree. However, when he's elected president, his job is to protect the country. And right now, I don't believe our country is being protected, and it scares me.
Yeah, but what if President Biden decided that he thinks that there are lizard people from Alpha Centauri that are providing a direct threat to America, and we need to change all sorts of civil liberties and change things and even suspend an election because we don't know if Donald Trump's not a lizard dude wearing a skin suit. So we've got to do that because of his beliefs. And that's the issue is beliefs have to be backed up by something in order to have you take action in the office. And that's the problem I think Trump's going to have in this court case is there's nothing behind him. And Fox News proved that. If Fox News had anything about a fraudulent election, they wouldn't have written a $780 million check. If they had anything at all, they would have walked into court with it. They didn't have anything.
Yeah, that's a good point. So going back to lizard person, we have lizard people flying over our border, and President Biden and Mayorkas don't care. And 12 and 14-year-old girls are tied to a tree and tortured by Southern's invaders. I have a friend that was killed, a teacher at CCD that was murdered by an illegal in a truck coming off Santa Fe and killed her. She had a daughter. So I have a very strong opinion about that.
Yeah. And I can see that taking that direction rather than where Jeff says it is purposeful. But I can get to the direction that is it an abdication of your responsibility? I can see that based on not closing the border or when you see this threat, taking any action in order to rectify that. I appreciate that, Jay. Yeah, thanks for the call.
Jay's line will be open 303-696-1971. Breaking news coming through with regards to the immunity decision in a 6-3 vote at the U.S. Supreme Court. The court upholding that the former president does have absolute immunity in his core constitutional powers. Former presidents are also entitled to at least a presumption of immunity for their official acts. But there's no immunity the court holds for unofficial acts. They send the case back down saying you didn't do a good enough job distinguishing between the 3 points there. Former president, presumption of immunity and then no immunity.
Now, this isn't the win that Donald Trump was looking for, but he won. And I'll tell you why when we get back. He won today.
We're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710, KNUS.
Supreme Court coming out with a big decision on Donald Trump and immunity. Billy, you think this is good news for DJT?
Yeah, this is very, very good news for Donald Trump. It's not going to court. They kicked it back down to the lower court. That means the lower court gets another bite at the apple. And that's important because judge was a chicken, I don't know, the one in D.C., the D.C. court judge. She had paused the calendar. And that's a little bit of minutia that's very important because there were, I believe, 81 days is what she had on the calendar. That if they had decided on immunity today, then she can click that calendar back in and she can get him to trial before the election. The fact it has to go down to the lower court and the lower court has to make a ruling prevents her from getting him into court. So for what
and that'll be appealed, and that'll be appealed,
yeah.
and
so for what Donald Trump wants, which is to not have any of these things happen before the election, today, even though he didn't get absolute immunity, today he won. He won today.
We'll continue to cover this. Plus, I want to get into Tractor Supply, doing the reverse. Put that tractor in reverse on DEI. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
9 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Monday, July 1st. And yes, it's 4th of July week, but that doesn't stop the news from coming in hot and heavy. Big U.S. Supreme Court decision being released in the last 30 minutes. 6-3. Finding that a president does have absolute immunity when it relates to his official acts, has pretty much the assumption of immunity for their official acts as former president, but the court found that they do not have absolute immunity when it relates to unofficial acts. Now, what does this mean? Well, as it relates to Donald Trump's conversations with Department of Justice officials, with the Attorney General, and he was cited for some of these conversations in his indictment, those are covered as acts of immunity. But to Billy's point, conversations and calls with election-related attorneys, conversations and calls possibly to Georgia, well, those are up for debate and discussion. And so the U.S. Supreme Court kicking it all the way back down, saying you need to do a better job discerning the difference between the two.
Yeah. So basically, this means that Joe Biden cannot use SEAL Team 6 to take out Donald Trump, as was the question during the Supreme Court case. When they were arguing this, it was, would this be acceptable that if the president has absolute immunity? And that was the press that Donald Trump's side wanted, that they wanted it declared to be absolute. But no, it only covers when you're doing this in the job of the president. So that's going to be really interesting in some of these cases going forward, because then you only have the immunity for the acts that you do while you are president, which also, unfortunately, now this is a win for Donald Trump because of what happens in D.C. This is going to delay the case there, and it'll probably delay it until after the election. But this does, now I don't think it's going to matter at this point. I don't think we'll get to it before the election, but this does create an opening for Jack Smith in Florida, because with the classified documents case, Donald Trump's actions post-office open him up for prosecution. And that's going to be an issue at that point. And so he's not going to have any immunity post January 20th, when the office is signed over to, and there's going to be a question about what happens after election into when Joe Biden takes over. But post the 20th, when Biden takes over, Trump is open for prosecution for actions that he takes after that. And that is going to help Jack Smith, but I don't think it means the case gets to the finish line any quicker at all.
Listen to Jackson's dissent here, Billy.
Yeah.
To the extent that the majority's new accountability paradigm allows presidents to evade punishment for their criminal acts while in office, the seeds of absolute power for presidents have been planted. And without a doubt, absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Yeah, she's got somewhat of a point, because if there are things that you can do, the idea of if you can not be held criminally liable, but the idea is you can participate in crimes, then in theory, you could say things like, and again, if we believe, and I think it's Hugh Hewitt or Dennis Prager that has made this argument, that if the Democrats really believe that Donald Trump is a threat to democracy, then they better be doing everything both legal and illegal to keep him out of office. Well, does that then mean that President Joe Biden could decide that Donald Trump is a threat to democracy and just put him in jail, or worse? Could a President Joe Biden, a President Nancy Pelosi, or a President Donald Trump decide that certain financial regulations need to be bent for them? There are certain things. Could they be involved in a criminal conspiracy to defraud the American government, but wouldn't be able to be held liable because they were the president? That's going to be interesting, because you now have given permission for crime. That's kind of what Ketanji Brown Jackson is saying, is that you're giving the president permission for crime. That's a different filter than we've had in the past. Not that the president can't be held accountable for things that happen in the process of their office, but now criming is okay in some situations. That's going to be fun. This is going to get real
It is
weird.
an interesting debate because, Billy, I go back to if your daughter, my daughter, was raped and killed by an illegal immigrant, and Joe Biden willingly, not through negligence, willingly allowed the border to be open and then released people, the guy that was captured that harmed your child. Would you want to sue the president for retribution? And making the case and all that is one thing, but the idea that you can be totally immune from a crime, it can cut both ways, right?
Here's the thing. What if? Okay, now I see your point on that. Now, again, this is a really, really bad analogy, but let's just pretend for a sec. You and I, just, you, me, you listening. We're just going to pretend. We're going to get outside of reality. We're going to create our own little bubble right now. Now, I can see the argument you're making about the case that, okay, I need to hold Joe Biden and his administration liable for the death of my daughter. What if the administration comes back and says, yeah, that's awful, but have you seen our declining birth rate? Have you seen that we have 2 jobs open for every 1 job? Have you seen that we need to keep this economic engine going? And the way that I'm doing that as president is bringing in all these new workers, and I'm expanding the society, and they're going to have babies, and I am refreshing the fountain that is America. Again, it's complete and total BS. I'm just trying to make an argument that could you possibly twist reason and logic just enough to claim that the action you take as president is not criminal. Now, I would side with you on your side, Jeff, on this. I'm just trying to make the argument of their side. It is irrational, illogical, and somewhat offensive. But I can see someone in power making that argument simply to avoid responsibility.
Yes. And
that's
claiming it was an official act.
Yes.
Eric,
yes, my friend.
Our friend Eric Manning thinks, Billy, as usual, you make no sense.
It's okay. It's okay. Again, the thing that I love about Eric, and I like Eric personally. He dislikes me at a level few people do on this planet. But it's always the personal insults. He never comes back and says, you're wrong about this, this, and this. It's always, you're wrong, you're a traitor, and then there's something else about my parents not being married or things that I need to do to myself that literally I would have to spend months and months in yoga to get nearly that limber. I can't even try. So
Come on, Eric, give us a call. I want to see that bout of wits between Eric and Billy and make for some good radio. All right, let's check in on the news with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Yeah, I could use some Eric calling this morning on this Monday. Come on, Eric, call in. 78 and cloudy in Denver, expecting highs in the upper 80s today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, as Jeff and Billy just talked about, the Supreme Court has ruled former President Trump has partial immunity from prosecution. Today, the justices ruled Trump is shielded on some levels from criminal charges for acts he took in office. The decision could impact all of Trump's pending court cases. The case was centered around federal charges accusing Trump of trying to overturn the results of the 2020 election. Former Trump advisor Steve Bannon reports to federal prison in Connecticut today. Bannon is set to serve a 4-month sentence at a federal corrections institute in Danbury. An ABC throat asked him over the weekend, will Trump supporters accept the results of the upcoming election? Of course, the left getting ready for chaos. Always forget about the summer of hell in cities in 2020, but what about after the election?
Will you appeal right now, message to all of Trump's supporters to respect the results?
Are you going to pull this?
Win
again?
or lose?
This your question.
Have you asked
a Democrat this question?
Never, and they never will. One of our great listeners, Joe, he's a voter and he's on fire this morning.
We need to stand up as Americans, put our faith in God, stand behind Donald Trump and don't listen to a word these people say and drag Donald Trump across the finish line with every erg of our moral fiber.
I know, like millions of Americans know, when you get knocked down, you get back up.
Man, it's so weird. He looked like a different person after the debate on Friday and Saturday, and it looks like the script and the supporters in front of him. You know what I'm talking about, you guys?
There's a
helped him a lot.
There's a
right?
movie called Dave about this. Do you remember Dave?
It's a good movie. It's a fun
Dave,
movie.
It was a
forgot
fun
about
movie.
that.
All right,
Yeah, that was a good movie.
Low-key shout out. Seriously, Blake. Chumbawamba. Dude, Chumbawamba? My man. High five.
Oh,
Virtual
man.
high five.
I knew you'd like that.
That was such an amazing callback. Nicely done. You have my respect this morning, my friend. You have my respect. That's fantastic.
Takes a genius who stayed up all night.
Yes, you were hallucinating
Barking
just
dog.
enough to remember that.
Exactly.
Can we hear?
That's
Can
right.
we hear that? By the way, because I think that's going to
yeah,
be
here,
the newest
Okay.
ringtone,
I
the
think
new
give me
hot
1 second.
2024 ringtone.
That's right. I have it. Like I said, I thought it was the call to prayer, but it was my neighbor's dog for 5 hours. So I yelled out the window, "Assalamu alaikum!"
You did not just do that. Oh my God, you're the best.
Biden's, let's see. I can't. Colorado's Ted Trimpa, the Democratic strategist, on with Jeff and Bill this morning. What would he tell President Biden today?
If I were advising him, I'm like, listen, we're pregnant. We're going to have the baby. And we just have to stick it out. Now, would I rather have seen someone else be the nominee? Absolutely. I mean, anyone who says that this is a great performance and this endears a lot of trust, they're just blind.
I agree. Now, Biden spent Sunday, as we talked about, at Camp David, discussing the future of his reelection campaign with family members. He'll have to agree to step down.
I don't speak as smoothly as I used to. I don't debate as well as I used to. But I know what I do know. I know how to tell the truth.
Yeah, you do. North Dakota Republican Governor Doug Burgum on NBC with Kristen Welker. Now, could be the next VP, and the lame brain media loves talking about the democracy, the democracy, threat to democracy, democracy. Yet they're trying to imprison and imprisoning their political opponents. Not a greater threat than that, right? Here is Kristen and the North Dakota governor.
As you know, though, in his answer repeatedly, there were caveats. And those types of caveats are what undermine people's faith in a free and fair democracy. Is he not undermining people's faith in the democracy and the democracy itself by raising questions about the fairness of the 2020 election, which, by the way, is on record as being one of the most fair elections in U.S. history?
I think this, I have to reject the whole premise, because just in the short lifetime, you don't have to be that old to know that in 2000, the Democrats challenged the election. They had every right to challenge it. It went down to one county, the Hanging Chads in Broward County in Florida.
All right, a lot of people are going to tune out this week because millions of travelers are moving on the roads and the highways and at airports. The Independence Day holiday, the TSA says that it expects to screen over 30 million passengers through Monday. AAA predicts a record 60 million people will be traveling by car over the holiday. Once again, in Colorado, if you're looking for some fuel, Gas Buddy says that the cheapest gas is $2.34 at a loaf and jug in Parker. All right, the Rockies outlast the White Sox 5-4 in 14 innings. Golly, when you don't get any sleep, man. 75 in Littleton, 77 in North Glen, 78 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue Monday morning. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
The 710 5-day forecast, partly cloudy to cloudy, warm, near 90. A few isolated showers and thunderstorms around today, near 60 tonight. Mid-80s Tuesday, a couple of late-day thunderstorms. Near 90 late-day thunder on Wednesday. Not as warm Thursday for the 4th of July and Friday with highs only 70s and low 80s with a few isolated showers and thunderstorms. Weather sponsored by Branch Planning. Some income annuities are paying 25 to 45% more than last year. Get a free retirement review by calling Branch Planning today at 720-651-9800. Find out more at branchplanning.com. I'm meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
This is the song Donald Trump plays as he strolls down the street knowing he ain't getting prosecuted this election year.
Woo! Got a little bob in his head.
Yep.
And in one pocket.
I'm going to go play some golf.
Yeah.
I'm going to outdrive Joe Biden.
Kind of nods the lady walking by. Yeah, you are looking good today.
You ain't getting to me this year.
Yeah. He's brushing it off his shoulders. He's like, brush it off, brush it off. I'm sorry. I'm such an idiot. I'm such an idiot. Why did they let me turn on the microphone?
So if you don't know what we're talking about, Donald Trump is looking good with regards to whether or not he's going to be prosecuted, at least this year prior to the election. The U.S. Supreme Court deciding today in a 6-3 decision that presidents, with regards to official acts, have absolute immunity. Former presidents have the assumption of absolute immunity as it relates to their official acts. But hold on. If your act is not an official act, let's say you're talking with campaign attorneys, something along that line, well, then you can be prosecuted. So it's not a total vindication for Donald Trump, but he is spiking the football, claiming that a lot of his acts were official acts. So now the courts are going to have to go back to decide. So the U.S. Supreme Court kicked it all the way back down and said that the lower courts need to do a better job of determining and distinguishing the difference between official acts and unofficial acts. And there is no way they're going to get through all of that before November. So this one is off the table for Donald Trump as it relates to January 6th activities and whether or not he'll be prosecuted prior to the election. Give us a call. What do you think of this? 303-696-1971. Let's go to Jim, Colorado. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, guys. Bill gave a description of flooding the country with illegals because of demographics and other needs, and maybe a president would refer to this as an official act. Well, he gave a description. His description is exactly what happened in the 1980s with those 4 amnesties that flooded California with what they thought was going to be 2 million illegals, ended up being 5 million illegals. This is exactly what Ronald Reagan did to California in particular and the Southwest and the entire South. Then next thing you know, we have illegals on train cars going to northern cities to work in slaughterhouses. So, but you know what? We've got to get away from bringing and changing the nature of our European country. And we've got to give thanks to the states like Arkansas and Tennessee and Iowa that do not want these illegals changing everything in their states. And they at least are changing the child labor laws so we can get children to work in those situations rather than illegals. We've got to give thanks to these states.
I like the tongue-in-cheek there thing, Jim, and I appreciate. I had forgotten that you're right. That is the amnesty idea, that they're here, they're already members of our society, and the best thing to do would be to integrate them. And that was Reagan that kind of rolled them in as far as the amnesty. And you make a good point based on the child labor laws, because the states are saying we don't have enough workers, so now we need to allow the kids to do more of the jobs. And that would be, again, if you wanted to create cover for why you have so many illegals in the country, that would be a good rationalization. That would be a good way to cover your rear end, to say, I'm doing this so that our little kids, don't have to work until 11 o'clock at night. So our little kids aren't the ones in the slaughterhouses, so that our little kids can spend time at home and at soccer practice and at basketball practice and with their friends and getting their homework done, not trying to put food on the table. Yeah, I mean, it would be disingenuous, but you're right. It would be a great way to justify the action. You're right.
It's not sarcasm. It's actually ongoing.
Yeah, it is.
As we,
You're right.
As we exist right here and now. These states say they don't want brown cheap labor. They want youth cheap labor, and they are putting it into state law. So if we think that we really give a darn about the children, well, I guess we got to understand that some people see children as a commodity, just like some people see brown folks and cheap labor.
Yeah.
Jim, can I ask you about this? Because
sure.
The labor laws are really strict. So, for instance, as it relates to kids here in Colorado, I'll give you an example here in Colorado that, like, if you've got a 14-year-old, they essentially can't find a job. So all summer, because of companies are afraid to hire 14-year-olds, you essentially have to get to 15 if you want to work at like Dairy Queen or McDonald's or any of those places. 15 years old, 14 years old, 14-year is sitting around this summer playing video games nonstop. I mean, it's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy. I'm like, really? They can't go do a little bit of work? Now, I'm not saying we got to jump to 50-hour a week. It's, work in terrible conditions type of experience. But the idea that a 14-year-old can't work maybe 3 hours a day at a local fast food joint or a local family restaurant, learn some experience, clean some dishes, take out the trash, I think that would make our kids a lot better.
I agree with you. I did it as a child. My son did it as a child. But here's the thing. Part of the reason why that doesn't occur is because this nation was flooded in the 80s and the 90s and the thousands with cheaper yet cheaper labor. And these people are available. These Southerners are available all the time, not just on summer break. Okay. And if they don't perform, then you can not pay them, or you can call immigration yourself on your own workers. And it's happened.
Yeah.
And when that is going on systematically around you, the employers do not see the need to bring in a teenager that is interested in learning. Okay,
Jim, you're right. I appreciate it.
For 30 darn years, guys. Have a great day.
Yep. Thank you, Jim. Jim's line will be open 303-696-1971. Mary, Wyoming. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. And just on that topic that you were on, I would say if the president wanted to use that as a defense, then at least verify them. You don't just let mass amounts across. That's criminal.
Right. I agree with you.
That's fair.
But the
what
thing
else is
that
on
I
your mind,
called
Mary?
about, it was going to be regarding the issue about the elections. One of the things that, I debated about whether I was going to do this or not, because it goes into the personal things. I worked with a crew of illegals. 2 of them I helped get citizenship. The others, because they had some criminal issues, even though they were misdemeanors, couldn't go ahead and go through it. But my point is, I'm going to take you back to the time of you know who I'm talking
Tom
about.
Tancredo? Yeah, Tom Tancredo.
Yeah. I believe so strongly wanting to do that. I did some volunteer work. And that's when I started learning about the electrical process. None of this times that we talk about it, it's the voting that's the count, not the getting. At that time, in that period, people have a tendency to forget. Do you remember that La Raza was doing incredible amounts of voter registration? They did it at all their functions, the Cinco de Mayos, etc. They were registering illegals. And back then, the rules in Colorado allowed that to happen. I remember you all had to have a utility bill. You showed a utility bill, they could register you. Have they purged those people off of the polls, or are they still getting a mail-in ballot?
It's
The
a good,
rules-
I don't know.
The rules are, unless you are a citizen in the United States, you are not allowed to cast a ballot in any federal election. There are some municipalities around the country that allow you to vote in some local elections. But the thing that has been proven,
Colorado didn't at that time.
but-
Colorado wasn't allowing that.
However, but Colorado does not allow illegals to vote or register in a national election. In fact, there is a process if you are here illegally to get an ID card or to go through it, and you're not allowed to be a registered voter. The other thing is every time they've gone through the voter registration rolls and looked for vast numbers of illegals casting votes, they've never found it. So the issue would be no, that is true, Mary.
I'm going to use that as an example, Billy. I mean, this is what I mean. That was when the Republican Party was doing the old way of whatever you want to call it. In other words, so I got my list from the Republican Party to call to encourage people to vote. And I was in Commerce City, is where I lived, my domicile was. And on my list, I didn't get Jones and Smith. I got all Hispanic last names, where when I called, they'd have their, they would go to their voicemail or their answering machine. And of course, I never got any calls back. I was so frustrated. Nobody called out. Why didn't people start saying, I did? Why is La Raza doing voter registration drives?
Why
They weren't
why can't
registering people.
I know, but here's the thing, though, Mary. The idea being this, that if La Raza has a voter registration drive and La Raza takes a name and the person puts down their name and they hand it over to the state to register this person to vote, the state does not take the La Raza list and just say, well, this has got to be good, and run it through. That's not how it works. There is an adjudication process in which they are cross-referenced with people that are either already registered and also based on residency. It's not just because I sign a piece of paper, I now get to go and automatically vote. And the Heritage Foundation, I believe it's the Heritage Foundation, has done a number of investigations into illegals registering and then voting in elections, and they have not found a lot. In fact, they haven't found any that would be significant enough to swing an election in any town more than a population of 50. They just don't see it.
And then you had to address that with me. And I appreciate that, because I remember when I registered this is before I came to Wyoming. When I went to register, renew my license, I saw the guy in front of me who and he checked the box, and he was illegal. And you said, oh, we've corrected that now. We don't allow that to happen. But what happened to all those people during that period of time that did check that box and got and said that they were going to vote?
They would be cross-referenced with residency. That's how it's done.
Lately?
Yeah, no, that's how it's always done. You don't, again, it's not, if you're registering to vote, they don't just take that piece of paper, feed it into a machine and say, well, you're registered. There's always cross-referencing, because otherwise I could go in and register.
They had an address.
But
their driver's license.
Yeah, I know that. I know, but still, but again, the driver's license would identify them as not being from here. That would be the issue, because if they're from here, they would have to provide something like a social security card, or they would have to provide a birth certificate. You can't go and register as a citizen because you have a bill for your power. That doesn't work. You can't register as a citizen because you have a receipt from your landlord that you paid rent. They're cross-referenced based on those lists. And the reason being is, if Jeff and I went down to a voter registration drive today, we couldn't register Bart Simpson at our residence. We couldn't register Montgomery Burns. That would pop up as someone that doesn't live here and is not a resident. So those lists are cross-referenced. It's not just when they turn the lists in, it's taken. The same thing with petitions. When they turn in petitions, they don't just say, well, look, how many signatures we have? Well, it's more than 2,000 signatures. Obviously good. They go through and check, and they verify voter registration to see if those people are registered voters in that area, to see if the petition counts. Same thing as the process.
When I came here to Wyoming, I remember, and this is during the election for Trump, they did, and there are other states even to this day that do not require that you have identification to prove who you are when you vote. Wyoming was that way for the 2016 election. Now they've changed that. Now you have to have identification too. But I understand there's 14 states that still do not require identification to do it. Because I remember how surprised I was when I went to vote that, they just, and your name, and then they handed me a ballot. And it was like, oh, I had my driver's license ready to vote. There are those states. Immediately when they talk about the stolen election, all it comes up is about the machines.
Well, Mary,
they don't
hang
go
on a sec.
back into how the many states do not require the ID that the people could have given any name to vote.
Hang on, but the people can't give any name to vote.
They can.
No, they can't, because the name has to be on the voter rolls. I can't walk in and vote in the fall election. I can't walk in and say, hi, I'm Montgomery Burns, I need to vote, and then walk out of the polling place, go put on a fake hat, mustache, and a beard, and walk back in and say, hi, I'm comic book guy, I'm here to vote.
You don't even have to do that.
But you do.
You don't even have to do that. I could have given my neighbor that I know that she is older and hasn't voted in years. I could have given her name and voted for her.
Mary, I
know that.
I think that the conservative critique of illegal aliens as it relates to voting is best suited around the idea that the census adds additional congressional seats unfairly to counties that have a lot of illegal immigrants, right? Because, to the argument that you and Bill are getting into about whether or not they can be registered to vote and are actually voting in campaigns and all that stuff. Okay, there's a lot of debate over that. Where there isn't debate, where you actually see things happening, is because the census counts people. Wherever you have a large amount of illegal immigrants, they're going to get more congressional seats. And as a result, this actually carries over to those states getting more electoral college votes, because your electoral college proportions are based upon your congressional seats. So, that's where I think there's a really strong argument from conservatives that the distribution of congressional seats based upon the census, where you have illegal immigrants counted in that, is not fair.
Definitely. And also, what you said earlier, Jeff, about the reasons that we think, that it's not just, that the election was stolen. Nobody talks about it. Again, they keep bringing up the machines, but what they don't talk about is that when we took it to court, we got no standing. The evidence was never ruled on.
Well, actually,
it was no standing.
Actually, Mary, yes, it was. The evidence was ruled on in many cases, because there were over 60 that were adjudicated. But even then, here's the thing, Mary. Here's the thing, as far as the idea that if you believed in election fraud, that you never had the chance to bring your evidence into court. That was the Fox News case. Fox News was sued for libel and defamation. That is the perfect opportunity to bring in any and all evidence of fraud in the election. And here's why. If Fox News was telling the truth about Dominion, they bring in all of their proof at that time and they put it on the table. They bring the receipts and say, here's all the stuff that Dominion was doing, and we can prove it here in court. So we're not doing libel or defamation against that company. But they had a secondary defense they could have used. And that is the defense of covering a real news story. And in that case, they can bring in illegals voting. They can bring in ballots that weren't folded. They can bring in all sorts of other machinations or theories. Everything that Rudy Giuliani and the strike force talked about, that would all be admissible in evidence, because then Fox is covering a legitimate news story about election fraud. When Fox tried to defend themselves, they never once came to the table and said the fraud existed, even as a news story.
Mary, I appreciate the call. We're just out of time. Before we get to a break, I want to talk to you about Dan Caplis and Dan Caplis Law. I've known Dan for decades. Dan is pro-life, pro-family, pro-America. Dan suggests you should choose a lawyer who shares your values because who you choose to represent you in an injury case says a lot about you to everyone involved in the case. Dan Kaplis is the son of a police officer. He's also a former seminarian who's dedicated the last 40 years of his life to helping people who are hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. But more than that, Dan is a champion in the courtroom. He's believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado history. Dan Kaplis Law is the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. Dan Kaplis Law is a serious firm for serious cases. Dan accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. If you need Dan's help, give him a call, 303-770-5551, 303-770-5551, or hit dankaplis.com. Calls and texts, you're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Now, there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts, text message your favorite local hosts, call the show, get the latest headlines, and enter contests to win prizes. All in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Let's go right back to the phone lines. Lewis, Denver, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show. Good morning.
Not Denver, Aurora.
That's
All
my
right,
mistake.
thanks.
I didn't move it.
Hey.
That's my mistake.
Okay. Listen, can't we agree now that the laptop was used as evidence in the Hunter trial, that it was used to affect the election and steal it? Because they said about 8% of the people, if they have known about the laptop, they would have voted differently.
What does the laptop tell us, Lewis? Tell us what conclusion you're coming to that shows us that the election would have been different about Joe Biden. How does Hunter's laptop show us that?
Because they diverted the truth that corruption with Biden, Joe Biden, and Hunter was all on that laptop. And people believed that it was a lie. But if they have known that it was true, that Biden was corrupted because of the money that was coming in from China, Russia, all these other places, Ukraine,
Well,
they
you know
would have
what?
voted
You know what, Lewis?
differently.
Actually, Lewis, there's one poll that has shown that one time, and that's a Rasmussen poll. That's the only one that's ever shown that. And the other thing is, inside of that Hunter laptop, and again, he's just been convicted. You know what we didn't have in that entire trial with Hunter? Joe Biden crimes.
What?
Joe Biden crimes. And Hunter's been investigated for nearly 6 years now.
But
the
this-
one thing
not-
that wasn't,
well-
no, Lewis, the one thing that wasn't on that Hunter Biden laptop was a Joe Biden crime. And that's
Well,
why
no.
the idea that it was election interference isn't correct. Because unless you got
No.
something illegal that Joe's doing, you got nothing, my friend.
No. Congress is now looking and using that laptop to show that there was corruption with Biden, and he did commit a
Here's the
crime.
thing, Lewis. Lewis
It
Coomer.
was focused on Hunter, not Joe.
I know, but Hunter's not elected to a darn thing. It doesn't matter if Hunter's doing crimes until you connect it to Joe. Doesn't matter. Just like if Eric Trump was doing crimes, it doesn't mean Donald Trump, president, is
But,
criminally liable.
Bill,
Same thing, man.
Here, I think that's a rabbit trail. Here's what Hunter Biden's laptop shows. The FBI knew about it, knew it was authentic. The intelligence officers knew about it, knew that it was authentic. There's direct communication between the Biden campaign and the 51 intelligence officers to put together the letter to claim that it was Russian disinformation. The highest levels of our intelligence community purposely lied to the American people in an effort to get Joe Biden elected.
No, you're drawing
That
you're drawing
is
a conclusion
wrong.
there. You're
That
drawing a
is
conclusion.
wrong.
You're drawing a conclusion that it was purposeful. That they did this on purpose.
was a
They
big
did it based
They
on
knew.
that.
They
No,
knew.
they didn't.
They knew
There
it
is-
was Hunter Biden's. They
there-
knew it was authentic.
Hang on.
And there's direct communication between the Biden campaign and those 51.
Can you show me any one of those 51 were involved with certification of the laptop from the FBI? Can you connect any of those? Or are they outside that ecosystem and they made their conclusion?
The
and they came to that
FBI,
conclusion
when that
based on
letter
that.
came out, the FBI could have said, "We know that this is real and authentic." They didn't do it.
But again, that is not buttressing up the argument that you just made.
No.
You assumed that all of those 51 knew it was false and did this on purpose. That's not the argument you just made. You said
Yes,
the
I
FBI
think they
could
did
have
know.
said, I know, but that is an assumption.
No,
that is an assumption not
there
based on
is-
facts.
This
You
thing
can
was
assume-
known years ahead of
you
time
can assume a whole
to
lot of
be
things.
authentic.
by a closed group inside the FBI. If
Who
you have
never said anything to those to that group?
We can talk about
Never
it.
worked
Yes.
with the Biden campaign. Give me a break.
That would be
and
communication
also-
inside of government. Those emails would be
in that
accessible.
hold on. In that 51 intelligence folks, a couple of them were on the payroll of the CIA.
Okay, now let's just talk about that. If let's say they are, and the laptop proves Joe Biden's crimes are.
Bill, you're taking it. They lied to the American people.
No.
That's the point I'm making.
That's not the question.
You want to make a jump to Joe Biden. The top level intelligence officials of this country lied to the American people in an effort to get Joe Biden elected. And then you go,
Exactly.
well, okay, but what crime did Joe Biden get? I don't care. I'm not talking about it. I'm talking about the intelligence officials who lied to the American people, knew it was authentic.
You say
This is a scam.
You have no proof. You have no proof.
You have
that they
absolute proof
You don't.
that the FBI knew that this was authentic.
Wait, that's not the 51
And
people
you
that
have
signed.
direct coordination with the campaign, with the Biden campaign.
Right. Does it matter at all that you?
I don't
linked the
care
word
if
FBI
Joe
and the
Biden
51
was
people
directly
interchangeably?
connected and smoking crack with Hunter Biden.
Well, that's important if you're saying that it shows crimes by Joe Biden, because Hunter Biden
Never
isn't
said
elected
that.
to anything.
I never said
Okay.
that.
So then the
My
laptop
point-
doesn't matter. The laptop does not matter. Thank you.
Yes,
I
It
appreciate
absolutely
Yes, it
matters.
Why? What crime did
The
Joe Biden
system
commit?
is rigged.
Persuade the people
That
to
is the reason
vote
why.
mine.
Hang on, Lewis, what did the laptop persuade the people of not doing? How are they not going to support Joe Biden based on what Hunter was doing? Please explain that to me. There isn't a single crime
Because-
that's been connected on that laptop to Joe Biden.
It
So
says
possibly, what is going on?
About 8% of the people, they said they would have voted differently. Okay.
No,
Now,
they
you
didn't.
said
No.
To me, that doesn't
one
even
vote.
matter,
It
guys.
doesn't matter, Lewis.
The big thing is that our intelligence agencies are not trustful as it relates to the American people.
That is an
They
assumption.
rigged the system for a political candidate they wanted. That is shocking.
And that's shocking that it's a conclusion not based on evidence that are in facts. And that's
It is
fine.
absolutely
No,
in
you can't
evidence and
show
facts.
me. You
I
can't
just
show me that.
explained it.
No.
All right.
Oh, you explained it. You explained why you believe that, but you didn't explain there's a connection. That's different. That's different.
The
my friend.
FBI knew. The FBI knew.
That doesn't connect them to the 51 the intelligence people that you're so mad about. Doesn't
It
connect
does.
them at all.
It absolutely
No, it
does.
doesn't.
All right, let's we'll get to Frank, and then we've got so many calls. Welcome to Monday on the Jeff and Bill Show. I want to talk to you all about advanced hair restoration, my friends there. Look, we the Jeff and Bill Show, top-rated talk radio show in Denver. Our friends at Advanced Hair Restoration, the top hair restoration service in Denver as well. We're right there along with each other. And look, summer is a time to look and feel your best, but I'm not talking about your abs or tans, guys. I'm talking about your hair. Restore that bald spot, reverse your receding hairline, or add volume to thinning during Advanced Hair's once yearly summer savings event. Advanced Hair's simple one-day treatment begins to regrow your own natural hair the very next day, and they guarantee your new hair will grow. There's absolutely no one I trust more than Dr. Tanya Pauls and her team at Advanced Hair. Take advantage of your flexible summer calendar and get the most hair for your dollar. Advanced Hair's summer sales event is on for a limited time, so get the details and schedule your free consultation today. 720-459-HAIR. One-day treatment, life-changing results. With Advanced Hair, your new hair will be guaranteed to grow. Check out the incredible before and afters and take advantage of their best offer ever. That's 720-459-HAIR or advancedhair.com. All right, we'll continue with calls and text. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
and Bill Show, real quick.
Okay, got 2 points real quick. One is it really makes this leap in logic that because Fox paid off their company, that clearly there was no election fraud. Number two, Mary was talking about something that is a fact. The fact is, and I'm stating this on my knowledge of Wisconsin politics, Wisconsin law, and that is in Wisconsin, you walk into the polling area booth. I mean, not the booth, but you walk in to vote. You register that day, you vote that day, and you're done.
No.
And there's no cross-checking at all.
Yeah, there is, Frank. There's cross-checking afterwards before they count that vote. Absolutely there is. And it's done every time. But
Well, no, in our show, we'll continue this debate about election integrity. Cal Thomas, followed by Charlie Kirk, is next. If you missed any of the show, go to 710 KNUS. You've been listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS. Enjoy your Monday.